Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Erica Manson, aka Marionette. She made her comic book debut just 2 years ago in Doomsday Clock issue 1. Her and her father moved to the United States and opened up a puppet shop across the street from Maze Glass, which eventually led her to meet Marcos Maze, who would soon become her husband, but I'll get into that a little bit later. They started, of course, as best friends, while Marco's stepfather thought that she was a bad influence. Ooh! So Marco ended up saving Erica from some bullies, and then Erica's father committed suicide after corrupt police officers were extorting money out of him at his puppet shop. Now, of course, this already sounds like a villain origin story, but it gets worse. So Erica ended up getting payback on the policeman while, of course, becoming the alternate persona, Marionette, with her trusty lover sidekick, Mime, aka Marcos Maze, who I mentioned earlier. I love this duo, honestly. Like, the vibe reminds me of, like, from Baby Driver, where you have Buddy and Darling. A lot of love and violence, just a hot mix. And before we head over to number 9, guys, if you could just give this video a thumbs up and like this video, it goes a long way over here at the studio. You guys rock, thank you. Now back to some more villains. And number 9, the Underbroker, not to be confused with the Underminer from Incredibles. So Harlan Graves, aka the Underbroker, is a businessman and lawyer located in, of course, Gotham City, who runs a bank for criminals. The Underbroker, of course, wears a fancy suit and a mask. I mean, he looks ready to go to the club, and he also looks ready to crunch some numbers. Love the red and black combo. Slick. He's a broker for criminals, so he would help them store cash in hedge funds. And he's actually so good at his job that the Caped Crusader doesn't even know about his secret organization he calls the Under Brokerage. Great name. He actually helped Catwoman transfer Batman's money to her account, but it was later revealed that he was just getting the account for the Joker. Super smart, super evil, and super handsome. Gotta love it. He made his debut in Batman Volume 3, issue 92. So if you want to check him out for yourself, you know where to look. And number 8, Barbados, also referred to as the Bat God, not Rap God. And he resides in the dark multiverse. So, the World Forger, of course, was set to watch over the vast universes, and while some of them held up, there are just some worlds that were just naturally unstable. So, what next? Well, they send a dragon named Barbados to destroy it. That way the energy can then return to the Forge. Now, sometimes you like your job a little bit too much, and this was the case for the Bat God. See, he ended up killing his master and then had a real taste for destruction, thus corrupting the Forge of Worlds. So now, with Barbados not destroying these worlds and sending that energy back, these worlds ended up becoming part of the Dark Universe. His journey begins with Dark Days, The Casting, issue 1.
Up next at 7 is Mira. So we've talked a little bit about Mira on one of our other hottest something objectifying all the heroes regardless of their genders lists, and it's about time she made this list. She's the former queen of the Dimension Aqua. She's got one of the best romantic relationships in comics with Aquaman, and she can form hard water objects. Also, Amber Heard as Mira. Yep, pretty damn great. Up next, number 6 is Miss Marvel, aka Kamala Khan. Kamala is a character that's pretty damn awesome and beloved by many. She's fairly new to the Marvel Universe and first appeared in 2013 and is a Pakistani American born in Jersey City. She assumed the mantle of Miss Marvel after Carol Danvers became Captain Marvel, and she discovered that she has Inhuman genes, and thus begins her journey where she navigates young adulthood while being a superhero. Ah, the struggle. And if all that's not interesting enough, it's worth noting that the first volume of her series won the Hugo Award for Best Graphic Story in 2015. She's fast becoming a fan favorite, and you should definitely check out her comics if you haven't already. Up next, number 5 is Spider-Woman. When you hear Spider-Woman's name, what may come to mind for some of you is that ridiculous cover where her body's proportions make 0 sense and just like ooze curves. Human body doesn't move that way, guys. You can draw sexy in an atomically correct way. Just saying. It's been done. Stupid cover aside though, she's super hot. Looking specifically at Jessica Drew here. She first appeared in 1977, and even though she was killed and then replaced by other women who took up the mantle, she had longevity as a character and returned in the New Avengers, and later got her second self-titled limited series. That would then evolve into an ongoing one that was cut short due to Secret Wars, but has been relaunched since. Up next, number 4 is Elektra. Created by Frank Miller in 1981, Elektra is undeniably a total badass. Master assassin, master martial artist, killed a bunch of dudes who tried to assault her when she was 9, and she did the killing when she was 9. She's a bit of an anti-hero, having previously sided with the Hand, and after dying and being resurrected and then enduring some good old mystical fun times, she worked with S.H.I.E.L.D. for a bit, and then a whole lot more happened that we won't get into right now because it's a short video. But long story short, this Olympic level athlete, who also happens to be a low level telepathic, is overall quite impressive. Plus, have you seen her on Netflix's Daredevil? Yeah. Damn. In at number 3 is Medusa. A product of the Silver Age, Medusa first hit the scene in 1965, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. She's a thief, has prehensile hair, and all the fun superhuman enhanced abilities you can imagine. Strength, speed, stamina, the whole 9 yards. You guys know the drill. Medusa is inhuman royalty, and those red locks of hers are nothing short of majestic. Each strand of her hair has greater strength, elasticity, and resistance than an iron wire of the same thickness, and she can animate her hair to move it however she pleases. How useful. That might be a sex joke, I don't know. And at number 2 is Silk Spectre 2. For clarification here, we're talking Laurie, not Sally. And while Sally has a very important history in the context of the Watchmen narrative, which very much involves her being quite the sex symbol back in the day, Laurie becomes the Silk Spectre readers and audiences grow to relate to and adore throughout the plot. Laurie hasn't had the easiest of upbringings, and when she was of age filled her mother's shoes. Or rather, heels. Aside from being smoking hot, thank you for that slow motion shot, Zack Snyder, she's a complex character who symbolizes more than just the achievement of sexual fantasies, read Night Owl 2. Laurie is the embodiment of the every woman, along with Dan's every man, left questioning whether their good intentions really play a consequential part to the grander scheme of all things. And finally, in at number 1 is She-Hulk. We talked about another attractive green lady on our part 2 list, Gamora, so it only feels right for us to bring Jennifer Walters into the mix too. And guys, she's a total babe. And if you disagree, hear me out. Despite getting a negative and honestly kind of unfair rep for being promiscuous, Jennifer Walters has the brains and brawn and charisma that just keeps compelling those around her. She's impressively strong, impressively smart, and charming as f. Aside from a weird hookup with Juggernaut in an alternate timeline, you can't deny that her hookups and relationships have been pretty darn steamy. In terms of personality, she's got it going on, and objectively, she's very physically attractive, even if green ain't your thing. She even chose to stay in her She-Hulk form versus going back to her human form like Bruce does, all because she feels more comfortable that way. Confidence is sexy, guys.
Number 10. Harley Quinn from Suicide Squad in the DCEU. So this Harley look from the not too well received film has become iconic. The amount of Harley cosplays that were transformed by this costume cannot be denied. The year that film was released, this costume skyrocketed Harley to the #1 Halloween costume for girls. However, despite this, there were some who weren't fans. Criticisms were launched at the film for objectifying Harley and for making her a victim of the male gaze, to the point where in 2020, the director of the spin-off film Birds of Prey, later changed to Harley Quinn in the Birds of Prey for marketing purposes, forced the Suicide Squad director David Ayer to apologize for the costume, which he did at first, but then kinda sorta took back what he said when he realized some people were just gonna come for him and it didn't matter whatever he said. You're not gonna stop seeing this costume anytime soon though. Love it or hate it, it most certainly is a look. Number 9. Starfire. Starfire is one of those characters who has come to be known for being hot, and during the New 52 reboot, that hit a crescendo when some pool, bathing suit, and just her general costume for the early time of that era hit for some what was deemed to be too much or too spicy territory. It was essentially 2 cups of fabric. Someone somewhere could be fapping to that, and that's not okay, apparently. Someone call the Prude Patrol. Honestly, how you feel about stuff like this is going to vary, but it definitely stuck in some people's minds, and some argue there are sexy characters who will always look sexy and then less sexy ones, and that just depends. However, others redrew her in her costume saying that they were impractical and that she was going to break her spine. There have been many takes. Number 8. Sue Storm from the 90s. Ah yes, the 90s. The Fantastic Four costume that was essentially a bathing suit with a 4-shaped boob window cutout. This was a thing. Lots of people got new costumes in the 90s, and Sue was one of them. I mean, her husband Reed got a vest. But why did hers cause such a kerfuffle for some? Well, cause she's a mom, that's why. And that's not allowed for some people. When moms are objectified or made sexy, that's not okay. Tasteful MILFs only. Again, all of this is a matter of taste, but some felt this costume was over the line and disrespectful to the type of character Sue was, which for many was not one meant to be oogled overtly, or ogled, however you say it. Also, some just don't care for 90s costumes. It is an era that is oftentimes mocked, which has also led for it to have a defense squad. Do you like this costume? Share down below. Number 7. Namor the Submariner. Whenever you're having a discussion about equal opportunity cheesecake, which I mean, why wouldn't you be, Namor tends to come up, credited as the man wearing essentially a Speedo since his inception. It takes confidence and commitment to be that exposed, especially when as many people have beef with you as they do with Namor. These days, Namor also has a more tasteful wetsuit style thing going on, but this green bottoms number has made several queer costumes lists, and is often cited as, oh, so you say Starfire is sexy? I raise you Namor, King of Atlantis. I wonder what Namor thought of Sue's 4-shaped boob window. Probably liked it. Number 6. Cosmic Boy. This was a look, wasn't it? We're talking about his 70s costume, which could easily be transported onto a female character, but did cause some raised eyebrows on a male one, just because of convention and expectation. This costume is doing the most, and some have a hard time taking it seriously. But again, it makes those homoerotic costumes lists, and for many, it's best left forgotten. I don't know, I kinda like it. Impractical costumes for all, I say. That's part of the fun. Let your imagination just run wild. I like to imagine he just still keeps it in his closet somewhere. Number 5. Ms. Marvel Carol Danvers. Ms. Marvel had a few costumes back in the day. Her first was just a feminized version of Captain Marvel's, but she would eventually get what for some was her most iconic costume. The black onesie with yellow lightning bolt across the chest and sash, red sash. And this was the look for years. It was popular at cons for cosplayers too. However, after becoming Captain Marvel in 2012, there was backlash against this sash costume as sexist or lessening her character in some way. Like, we needed to put this costume back in the box and ignore it. Just, Carol has had a hard time as a character for the past few years because she's often a battleground for fans and fandom and ideologies. So she can be utilized different ways by writers. So there's often much going on behind the scenes with her stories that sometimes leads to her herself as a character being lost. I liked this costume, not gonna lie. Sucker for a lightning bolt. Number 4. Star Sapphires. With Green Lantern Rebirth, the return of Hal Jordan, not the comic tied to DC Rebirth, there were some changes made to the Green Lantern mythos. One of those was the introduction of the light spectrum, the emotion core. Now, Star Sapphire and the concept of the Zamarons, and Star Sapphires in general, had been around for a bit, but it was the costumes they sported during the build-up to the War of Light that drew the attention of some. With massive cuts down the middle, it's essentially that Cosmic Boy costume, but in pink. Or lilac. There were numerous reverse this. Why aren't there men in the core? Because it would look ridiculous. Cosmic Boy disagrees. The costumes would eventually be made more uniform-like with the chests covered, which I don't know. I mean, I know they have shielding because they're power rings, but it's very cold in space. I'm glad they're not cold anymore. Number 3, Emma Frost. The White Queen. Thanks to Grant Morrison, she can make a superhero list because during this run, she would start a redemption arc with the X-Men that would even see her become a teacher at Xavier's school, though she's still pretty firmly an anti-hero. And few have forgotten her iconic costume of bustier and cape, and for a time, bikini bottoms. A bustier is a villainous staple, and has definitely made Emma Frost another cosplay darling. People tend to like costumes with something distinct about them, so for Emma with the white fabric, the corset-style top, and the attitude, for some just creates the whole package. Oh, and the thigh-high stockings. All the kinks. Number 2 is Zatanna. Though this place could also probably have gone to Black Canary, cause fishnets. But Zatanna also has the whole magician on top thing going on. This at times includes a little tie and a top hat. Zatanna is actually a pretty old character. She debuted all the way back during the 60s in an issue of Hawkman actually. Number 4 to be precise. Over the years, her physical appeal has definitely been played up and her costume has changed, but for many, the sexiest iteration was the fishnet leggings and magician business apparel style top and hat. Though some don't mind her newest costumes either, which veer into corset-y territory. Come on, look at the hat. You gotta love a hat. Number 1, Witchblade. Released initially in 1995, boy does this comic go hard and then some. The adventures of police officer Sarah Pizzini, who comes into possession of the Witchblade, which covers her in a barely there species-esque costume, was incredibly well received. This costume grabs attention, also because it's so cool. It's got this metalish element, like heavy metal, not metal. That means it can be drawn distinctly every time. Plus, just in general, how she was drawn. She's a sexy loose cannon who gets results. Witchblade has a lot of cheesecake, but also a lot of plot. It's not for everyone, but I mean, nor is anything else.
And at 10, Catman. I mostly put this on the list because I wanted to joke about Fairly Odd Parents. Thomas Blake, once a wealthy socialite in Gotham City, became a skilled hunter of jungle cats, but squandered his fortune in pursuit of his obsession. Left with nothing, he turned to a life of crime. Considering becoming a vigilante like Batman, he chose a different path later on and became the costumed villain known as Catman. His criminal spree involved stealing cat-themed items and valuables, mirroring his affinity for the creatures he once hunted, and as Catman, he encountered Batman and Robin on multiple occasions, and they eventually figured out his identity, thanks to the intervention of Batwoman. In a desperate attempt to escape capture, Catman deployed a giant cat robot, but the dynamic duo stopped the plans and destroyed the machine. In a final confrontation, Catman was washed away by a river and presumed dead, his criminal career coming to an end. But, I mean, still, Adam West as Catman on Fairly Odd Parents definitely makes him street level. If a kids show can joke about it, then yeah, you're sad. In at 9, Prometheus. Prometheus, born to criminal parents, witnessed their violent demise at the hands of the police, which left them traumatized and turned their hair white from shock. Fueled by a desire for revenge against justice, he took an oath to eradicate all those who stood in his way. Concealing his true name, he became a formidable foe with a plan to wreak havoc on the world. After unleashing devastating devices across numerous cities, causing immense destruction and loss of lives, including Roy Harper's daughter Leanne, Prometheus offered a deal to the Justice League of America. He promised to reveal the device's locations and deactivate them in exchange for his freedom. Reluctantly, the JLA agreed to save innocent lives. However, upon return to his hideout, Prometheus encountered Green Arrow, who sought vengeance for Leanne's death. In a swift confrontation, Green Arrow shot an arrow through Prometheus' head, putting an end to the man's reign of terror. But hey, then it started the whole Trial of Green Arrow storyline, which a lot of people hate. So yeah, that's why he's up higher on the list, because of him. In an 8, Court of Owls. They're a violent cabal who uses architecture and murder to wield political influence throughout the city. Their legend is only told through whispers and a nursery rhyme that bears their name. To carry out their interests, they employ a breed of highly trained assassins known as Talons, and the leaders of the organization appear to be humans wearing owl masks on their faces, because where else would you wear a mask? The rest of the court, on the other hand, are mutated and appear to be actually like human-owl hybrids. Their owl-like distorted faces, long claws, and their eating style seem to prove this, unless they're just very into roleplay, or maybe they're just owl bears, and D&D has been real in the DC universe for ages. The Court of Owls takes notice when billionaire philanthropist Bruce Wayne announces plans to rebuild and reshape Gotham City for the future, but is sentenced to death by the group and their assassin, the Talon. They attempt to kill him during a meeting with politician Lincoln March, but they don't, because, you know, he's Batman. They struggle to the top of Wayne Tower, and the Talon survives a fall from the top of it somehow, but Batman begins to investigate and uncovers their whole society and a secret headquarters and how they were established by the Alan Wayne Trust, and it's a whole thing that is just meant to make Batman connected to the corruption in the city.
And coming in at number 7, Volthoom, Earth 15. Making his first appearance in Green Lantern Annual Volume 5, Issue 1 back in 2012, also known as the First Lantern. So like I said, he's from the future on Earth 15 in the year 3079, and after his world was on the brink of destruction, him and his mother used the newly discovered emotional electromagnetic spectrum, which is a multiversal force powered by all life in the multiverse. Then they used this power to create the Travel Lantern, and then Volthoom left to find safety while his mother stayed behind and unfortunately, in superhero fashion, died by being crushed by a building right as he left. So he traveled for weeks through space and time in desperate hopes to find something to save his home world. So he goes to Earth 17 and uses the spectrum to resurrect plant life. Cool, not much more to do here, let's go next. He tries Earth 47, then they use the spectrum to create nice music. Cool, and next he went to Earth 3 where he met a sorcerer named Mordu, in which he creates a power ring out of a piece of his soul. And that ring, of course, being called the Ring of Volthoom. He finally found Earth 0 where he acted as the law and order. Eventually Volthoom's mind was corrupted from the spectrum and he becomes insane and tries to kill the Malthusians, who had created a great heart battery beforehand. Not cool, Volthoom, more like not cool Tomb. Nah, I tried. And number 6, Daniel West, Reverse Flash. Making his first appearance in the Flash Volume 40, Issue 0, Daniel West is a classic speedster. His costume is the first thing you notice when looking at this version of the Reverse Flash. His suit is made partially from the monorail that he crashed into, so it acts like an armor around him, which is super cool looking. It was merged to him. So after an accident where you get super speed, becoming a supervillain isn't too hard of a lane to slip into, especially when your mother dies while giving birth to you and your father is an aggressive alcoholic. Yeah, Daniel's upbringing is super tragic, so he uses the Speed Force in attempts to go back in time and prevent this from happening at all costs. So if anybody has to die in the meantime, so be it. His goal is to take out other speedsters and use their Speed Force to help him achieve his goal. Sad times indeed. Number 5, William Cobb, the Talon. He made his comic book debut in 2011 back in Batman Volume 2, Issue 2, and the Talon is an assassin for the Court of Owls, who claims to have killed several Wayne family members, including Bruce Wayne's great-great-grandfather, Alan Wayne. Not a bad resume. He began his early days juggling baseballs on the street just to get by, and after his father had passed away tragically while building a bridge for Cameron Kane, he began his early days juggling baseballs on the street just to get by, after his father had passed away tragically while building a bridge for Cameron Kane. So he would earn some money and then sneak it into his mother's purse. What a gem. And then one day somebody was watching his act and then got pickpocketed. So William Cobb noticed and hucked one of these baseballs at him, saving the day. The man offered him a job at a circus as a thank you. So he started using knives instead of baseballs to amp up the act, keep it fresh, and eventually met his love, Amelia, back when he returned to Gotham. Now he was a celebrity though. Amelia's father didn't like the two in love, so he told William to beat it. Amelia at this time was actually pregnant. Ruh-roh. So Cobb joined the Court of Owls and became one of the Talons, and went back to Amelia's house to kidnap his own son. His son ends up becoming the Gray Son of Gotham, John Grayson's father. Number 4, Oblivion. Making his first appearance in Green Lantern New Guardians Annual Issue 2 back in 2014, Oblivion is made of Kyle Rayner's rage, fear, and anxiety. He's the physical form of all of those traits and even believes himself to be Kyle Rayner. He stayed in his apartment and even tricked Carol into thinking that he was the real deal. So he has powers that allow him to shapeshift, teleport, he can project vast amounts of energy that match a white lantern, and he can also create illusions of people and objects. So one day Oblivion teleported Carol and himself to Arizona, where he used his powers to alter all the people in the buildings there. He's kind of annoying like that, Number 3, Gotham Girl. AKA Claire Clover. She made her debut in DCU Rebirth issue 1 in 2016. Her and her brother Hank both traded in years of their lives for superpowers. So they can either live 2 years at Superman's level, or live a few hours with godlike levels, which is really interesting. If you had this power, which way would you go? Let us know in the comments, because I'm curious. So Batman ended up taking Claire and Hank under his wing, but unfortunately, Psycho Pirate's mind manipulation ended up getting the better of him. Hank ended up using all of his life force just to defeat the Justice League. After his death, Claire wasn't doing too well. Batman even told her his real identity and how he sometimes likes to talk to his dead mom as well. How lovely, what a nice little bonding moment. Now, by the name of this list, you won't be too shocked to hear that she had also been secretly working with Bane to break Batman on a psychological level. Not cool. And number 2, the Court of Owls. I mentioned them earlier, so I figured since they're gonna be in the new Robert Pattinson Batman flick coming out in 2022, they're worth a bigger mention. So since the New 52, the Court of Owls have picked up steam. Created by Scott Snyder, this new secret society looks as cool as they are. They're an ancient group that has been secretly controlling Gotham for a while. Like a while. They even go back to some early Bruce Wayne days, hence them being part of the Matt Reeves Batman plot coming up. Their top assassin, of course, being the guy I mentioned earlier, Talon. So he ended up attacking him, and then Bruce decided to do some detective work, discovering the secret society. So he finds out that the Court of Owls actually has secret headquarters in every building made by the Wayne Trust. Sneaky. Gotta love secret cults. And finally, number 1, Mr. Bloom. One of the coolest looking guys on this list, Mr. Bloom made his debut in 2015 in Batman Volume 2, issue 43. He began his journey by stealing high-tech seeds. Yep, you heard me, I said seeds. Makes sense why he's got the flower on his face. It goes well with the terrifying Slender Man look. I wonder what it smells like. Probably death or daffodils, one of the two. So after he took these super seeds, he got some superpowers, super strength, elasticity, hence the lankiness, and he can project flames and ice from his hands. Pretty neat. So he decides to give these seeds to a select few who desire superpowers. The only cost? Their life. I think next year for Halloween, I'm gonna go as Mr. Bloom. Either him or Orlando Bloom. One of the Blooms for sure, I'm just not sure which one, Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Talia al Ghul. She's the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, the leader of the League of Assassins, and she's constantly being torn between her father and the Caped Crusader himself. Now, in Batman Son of the Demon, the name should tip you off as to what happens. But by the end of the story, Talia ended up giving birth to a child, and Batman was the father. Meet Damian Wayne. He was perfect. genetically speaking of course. He was born from an artificial womb and he was supposed to join the League of Assassins and be a great warrior. That was the plan. You know, having a powerful skill set in martial arts before he was even a teenager, Talia al Ghul explained who he was and left him with his father, Batman. Now she was hoping that this would cause problems for Bruce Wayne and that this would disrupt Batman's work. You know, getting the little one to spy on Batman and stir up some drama with Tim Drake in the meantime. He was actually quite eager to replace Tim Drake as Batman's wingman. So troubled Damian Wayne grabs another Robin costume, added some of that League of Assassins gear he was used to, and then he took out the villain Spook. In a rather dark way, too. The guy's wild. At one point, he ended up sucker punching Tim Drake off of a T-Rex model. Sometimes those villain genes just get carried down no matter how the kid gets born. And before we continue on with this list of bad moms, guys, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you want. You should, because it really helps out our studio quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for your continuous support. Now let's get back to this video. Number 9, Superwoman, Earth 3. She made her comic book debut not too long ago in Justice League Volume 2, Issue 23. Lois Lane of Earth 3, that is an Amazon native and a member of the crime syndicate. Now, she was in a relationship with her teammate Ultraman, but that relationship was pretty toxic. So she veered off and had an affair with another teammate, Owlman. And then she also had another affair, but this time with Alexander Luthor. So she had this handy little tool that helped her get all these side romances in the works. She had the lasso of submission, which enslaves others to her will. So it was only a matter of time before she got pregnant with one of these guys. Now, supposedly, the child was Ultraman's. But, she told Owlman that it was his. She was manipulating both men. Her plan was much deeper though. When the Injustice League had attacked, they freed the prisoner Mazaz, who Superman then revealed was the true father all along. So yeah, she manipulated the Syndicate into bringing him back as a prisoner, where she helped him go against Black Adam and Bizarro. And honestly, this whole love triangle or love hexagon is definitely Bizarro. That's the word I would use for it. Number 8, Catwoman. Selina Kyle first appeared in comics way back in 1940 in Batman issue 1. She's had a pretty on and off complicated relationship with Batman, so it was just a matter of time before the two got really close. In Huntress issue 1, the Huntress of course is introduced as Helena Bartolini, but there was another Huntress in the comics as well, and she was the daughter of Bruce and Selina. She was introduced to readers in Huntress volume 3, issue 1. Now this all happened on Earth 2 as well. See, Helena is a lawyer for Cranston, Grayson, and Wayne, but the daughter of Batman and Catwoman. So she's got a few tricks up her sleeve as well. When she was only 19 years old, her mother, who used to be Catwoman, passed away in a tragic mishap, no thanks to this henchman named Silky Cernak. He was the reason behind a photo that came up, and it showed Selina Kyle as Catwoman attacking a police officer. So of course Helena was pretty upset, and she wanted to get even. They're making her mom look bad. So she took a page out of her parents' book and became the Huntress. Now she went after Silky Smooth Cernak and then got him arrested, and her mother wasn't even as bad as she thought, because the photo, it was tampered with. It wasn't even a legit photo. But she ended up keeping the suit and attitude and eventually wound up on the Justice Society of America. And also recently this year, readers got their first look at Jim Lee's variant cover for Batman and Catwoman issue 4, where Helena Wayne stands front and center, and in this version she looks really, really cool. If you haven't been reading that run, you're missing out.
Number 7, Punchline. Also called Alexis Kay, she is the Joker's new right-hand woman, as Harley has a lot going on right now and the two aren't really on speaking terms. She was a student at Snyder College and encountered the Joker while on a field trip to a TV studio. Joker hijacked the studio and Alexis was forced at gunpoint to act as the newsreader, delivering Joker's message to the citizens of Gotham. After this encounter, she became obsessed, starting a podcast about the Joker and poisoning the people around her to try and get his attention. She eventually kills her college dean, proving herself to the Joker, who taught her how to create a modified form of his Joker venom. Link in the script there. She goes on to help Joker in his war against Batman, eventually having an epic showdown against Harley Quinn and Batman. She wields a couple of daggers and holds her own well against Catwoman and Harley. Number 6, Silver Banshee. First appearing in Action Comics number 595, Silver Banshee is a villain with sonic powers who frequently goes up against Superman. She was once insanely powerful, but has sort of been dumbed down a bit over the years. It's just how it goes with these supervillains sometimes. But in her youth, she was dragged into the Netherworld during a supernatural conflict as family stuff, and granted superpowers by a creature called the Crone. She is initially controlled by the powers like a curse, but later overcomes it with the help of Supergirl. They become fast friends and get to know each other pretty well. The two later hang out in a bar together, and it's totally lit. They're having a great time until her dad, Black Banshee, shows up. Luckily, the two of them are able to defeat Black Banshee together. Silver Banshee is known for her ability to learn language instantly, and more importantly, this crazy power to just like make people die by saying their name. It's sort of like the Black Canary's canary cry, except the Banshee version, and it instantly kills you. Number 5. Blackfire. Blackfire is the older sister of Starfire from the Teen Titans. She often appears as an adversary of the Titans and is extremely powerful, outmatching the already astounding Starfire in battle. She can absorb ultraviolet radiation and transform it into deadly bolts she calls Black Bolts, and can even change radiation into energy, giving her superhuman strength and endurance. She is especially powerful, capable of interstellar travel and flight in space. It's kind of the same thing. She appears in Red Hood and the Outlaws number 11, where she fights alongside her sister and takes down the Blight after they capture Roy Harper. It's an epic team up and a great reunion for the two sisters. Number 4. Mary, Queen of Blood. Mary Seward is the Queen of Blood, appearing in House of Mystery number 290 in 1981. She once had a lover named Andrew Bennett, a decorated nobleman who was bitten and turned into a vampire. Mary begged Andrew to bite her as well, hoping that the two could spend eternity together. However, Andrew resists the vampiric bloodlust while Mary embraces it and becomes a ruthless killer. She forms a cult called the Blood Red Moon, and Andrew hunts her across the centuries trying to stop her. She once turned an entire temple of monks into vampires, but they rather impressively resist the bloodlust through mindfulness and meditation. She has a crazy host of powerful abilities, including psychokinesis, transformation, regeneration, superhuman strength, not to mention immortality. As long as she has a steady supply of blood, she is extremely powerful, and I'm sure it's easy for her to get more. Number 3. Killer Frost. Killer Frost is just a classic deadly female villain, an icy-hearted femme fatale who will literally suck the life out of you in a heartless attack. There have been multiple iterations of Frost, always iconic and always super powerful, having once even sold her soul to become more powerful. She has been kidnapped and forced to work on the Suicide Squad, and once even worked alongside Batman. Caitlin Snow is the newest Frost, a scientist who is tricked by Hive and made to die in a staged accident, but she instead survives and gains her ice-based powers. She is not made of ice, but instead generates organic ice-like cells that make up her entire genetic makeup. She is a heat vampire, absorbing the body heat of others to kill them. Number 2. Enchantress. Also known as June Moon, Enchantress gained her powers from an immensely powerful being and almost immediately winds up battling against Supergirl. She later joins the Suicide Squad as Amanda Waller agrees to help her control her evil Enchantress side. She can manipulate energy, heal, and even teleport. She once took on Wonder Woman, Cyborg, and Superman all at once, and has defeated other villains as well. Her powers have gotten kind of erratic and unpredictable since June Moon and Enchantress became separated from one another, but she has still demonstrated some impressive raw power in her villainous career. She is capable of flight, necromancy, and possession, elemental control, and even resurrection, but only if the corpse is fresh. If it's not though, she can always use the necromancy. Number 1. Evil Supergirl. Lex Luthor had an evil scheme that basically caused all of this. He created a black kryptonite energy ray, which he used on Supergirl, hoping to corrupt her. Instead though, the ray generated a second dark version of Supergirl. This dark version had similar memories and experiences, but believed that she was sent to Earth to kill Superman. And as you can imagine, she's crazy powerful. She goes on a rampage using her Kryptonian powers, causing tons of damage, and even taking down Black Canary and the Flash before finally facing off in an epic battle with Superman and Wonder Woman. Evil Supergirl is likely one of the most powerful villains ever, and it's actually Wonder Woman that brings her down in the end, catching both versions of Supergirl in her lasso and merging them together back into one.
Number 10. Doomsday. I have to just assume that Batman is afraid of Doomsday, and there are multiple reasons I believe this. For starters, anytime I've seen Batman even attempt to get involved in a fight with Doomsday, he is never throwing punches. He is either staying the heck out of the way, maybe only acting as a distraction, or he is powered up by some serious magical artifacts. Secondly, Batman is incredibly smart. He knows how hard it is for someone to take down Superman, and the fact that Doomsday is one of the few characters who is able to do it, and with such brutality, there is no way Batman is not intimidated by this monster. I refuse to believe it. Honestly, my favorite point of proof is seeing what Ben Affleck's Batman does in Batman vs Superman. Say what you want about that movie, but Batman jumping around the battlefield just trying his best to stay out of the way? Hilarious. Number 9. Prometheus. As a dramatic inversion of Batman, the tragic figure of Prometheus presents a serious threat to the Dark Knight. Enraged by the passing away of his parents at the hands of law enforcement, Prometheus vows to fight the law with the same intensity that Batman seeks to uphold it. Backed by ludicrous sums of money, Prometheus trains diligently and becomes the bane of police officers and military men across America. Armed with an all-powerful helmet, Prometheus earns godlike powers that give him the strength of the best fighters on Earth. It's no wonder that when he breaks into the Justice League Watchtower, he single-handedly beats the majority of the team, and Batman takes the majority of that shellacking. Prometheus runs the Dark Knight into the ground. It was the first showdown between the two orphans, and Prometheus takes the victory without any effort at all. Hey, are you liking this video? Well, then hit that thumbs up button, rookie. We need your support. Number 8. Zsasz. Victor Zsasz has a character trait that a few others on this list possess. He's just completely and utterly insane. Zsasz scares Batman for one main reason. Whenever he is not locked up, it's almost guaranteed that lives will come to an end, which just ups the ante because every escape of this killer becomes a race against the clock for Batman. He needs to bring him down fast before he adds another scar to his body. Every single one of those scars signifies a failure for Batman. Zsasz is a man with absolutely no form of pity or morals, and he will never stop unless he passes away, but we know Batman will never do that. In an alternate story, Injustice, Zsasz is even responsible for the passing of Alfred Pennyworth, which was not supposed to happen, but because Zsasz is Zsasz, it did.
Number 7. Perpetua. Perpetua is an old evil, but one that we didn't know of in the comics until 2018 when she was first introduced in Justice League Volume 4, Issue 8. Perpetua quickly became known as one of the greatest evils the universe, or multiverse really, had ever known. She was the creator basically of all things, and the mother to the Anti-Monitor, World Forger, and Over-Monitor. Billions of years ago, she was betrayed by her own children and trapped in the Source Wall along with her devastating and deadly creatures, the Apex Predators, a vicious combination of Martians and humans. Yeah, she really old. Perpetua was the one ultimately responsible for the crisis in the DC universe, as it was her whisperings from within the Source Wall that brought them about. The energy allowed her prison to weaken, cracking a little more each time there was a crisis, which was how Perpetua planned to escape. She was eventually freed when the Source Wall broke as a result of Barbatos and the Batman Who Laughs actions, allowing her to once more wreak havoc on the world and earn back her power so she might rebuild the universe again in her own horrifying image.
Number 6. The Kindred. Making its first appearance in the Multiversity Guidebook number 1, the Kindred is this cosmic force that appeared after the Rebirth event. Created by Grant Morrison, the Kindred is a 4-part entity, and they each represent DC lore, so those 4 being the Speed Force, Magic, Cosmic Power, and Emotional Light Spectrum. So they have a handle on pretty much any angle out there. Now, this is a villain list, so this is bad news for us, or rather bad news for pretty much any world. For starters, they take all of the energy from living creatures. That's how they come together. Nice, teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work. Also tears. So off the bat, these guys are just OP. I love the look of these celestial gods though. They each have their own color. Even if Brian Hitch wrote them into his run with the Justice League, with destruction being the driving force, this is still kind of a villain that even I'll root for. I said it, sue me, what's up?
Number 5. Punchline. So Punchline has to be one of my favorite of the newest villains we've seen. I didn't want to like her when she was announced, especially as I thought she was going to be like some new, younger version of Harley Quinn, which I didn't really think that we needed. But then I met Punchline, and I gotta say, I like Alexis. She's okay by me. Punchline's real name is Alexis Kay, and we learned her backstory in the Joker 80th anniversary special. She sought out the Joker believing that his ideology matched or at least suited her own. She has displayed some pretty sweet chemistry and toxicology skills, making Batman his own special version of the Joker venom. How nice. Which tormented him through most of the Joker War story and has proven how deadly she can be with her stilettos when she managed to land a life-threatening hit on Harley Quinn. I really hope we get more Punchline in the near future. I was pleasantly surprised by how different and interesting she is in comparison to Harley Quinn, and I also just love her character design. Punchline first appeared in Batman Volume 3 in issue 89.
Number 4. Eradicator 2. With that name alone, oh boy, you already know what's coming. The Eradicator 2 was created, of course, after DC's rebirth with the absence of the original Eradicator. Another big bad version was bound to show up. I mean, we expected it. So of course, this is the newer version of Eradicator from the 80s comics, but the best part is that he still has the 80s look. He's got the retro, badass glasses, which are such a nice touch, by the way. Just by looking at this guy, you can tell he's the coolest. Created by General Zod, this AI ended up taking on the physicalities of Superman, hence the everything about him. So when this badass AI is close to a yellow sun, he gets powered up real good. I'm talking the usual super strength, stamina, flight, speed, and he's basically invincible. A cool but scary power that he also obtains is that of energy manipulation, because he's made of course, pure energy. Eradicator wasn't used too much, but I feel like Eradicator 2, since his first new appearance in Superman Volume 4 Issue 2, at the very end we see his rebirth, and it's beautiful. Once the Kryptonian gene is detected back on the Fortress of Solitude, energy forms all around the room. There's an ID badge, some glasses, and then bam, all this mixed into one. You get this bright pop, and his opening line being, "We are here, we will save you too, Kal-El." And it's sick. He's like basically Terminator with the cape. He's got the look, there's this energy coming from him. I would love to see this guy go head to head with Henry Cavill. I mean, maybe we'll get more of a dark alternate version with the Snyder cut of the Justice League, but fine, that'll have to do in the meantime. For now.
Number 3. Clown Hunter. Clown Hunter is just a kid who stepped up to the plate when it came to taking back Gotham during the Joker War. Seeing his neighborhood being ravaged and attacked by the Joker gang, and having lost his parents to the Joker, he was inspired to start cracking skulls, which is exactly what he did, defending the innocent with a baseball bat with a batarang attached to it, to kill any clowns that crossed his path. His true name is Bao Pham, and at the end of the event, he was confronted by Batman himself, who suggested that he seek help and speak to a therapist. He also offered to mentor Clown Hunter, but warned him that he would not tolerate the teenage Bao killing anyone else, no matter their crime. Clown Hunter seemed interested in getting help, but only after his work was done. Clown Hunter first appeared in issue 96 of 2016's Batman.
Number 2. The Batman Who Laughs. Bruce Wayne, but from Earth 22, is a touch different than the one that we know best. The Dark Universe is a very special and very vast place filled with alternate versions of characters, but one of the most notable has to be the Batman Who Laughs. Making his first appearance in Dark Days, The Casting, this Bruce Wayne has, well, of course, similar origins that we're familiar with. Parents were murdered, became a crime-fighting bat, protects Gotham, all the good stuff. But this Joker changed his path up. Joker began murdering everybody in Gotham. He bombed a hospital and then shot the parents of the kids. Like, he's twisted, and he's also dying at the same time. He's dying from the chemicals that made him become the Joker in the first place. So of course he wanted to take everybody out with him. So when Batman stepped in and killed him by breaking his neck, the toxins from the Joker were inhaled by poor Batsy, causing this to happen. So a day later, he's joined by Batgirl, Nightwing, Red Hood, Red Robin, who were training in the Batcave, and then Batman then shot all of them. And then this is just the beginning. This insane clown Batsy is terrifying and entertaining in all of the right ways.
Number 1. Ghostmaker. We don't know a lot about Ghostmaker yet. He first appeared in Volume 3 of Batman, the current run, in issue 100 as a mysterious figure. And so far, he stayed that way. We'll likely see more of him in issue 103, but so far we know he's not as new as he might appear. In fact, in Batman issue 102, Batman seems to recognize him, leading many to speculate as to which old rival Ghostmaker's true identity could actually be. We do know that he's here to challenge Batman for Gotham and to provide the people with an alternate option when it comes to choosing their hero for their city. He also comes with a ton of tech, and at this point is probably going to quickly end up being better equipped than Batman himself when it comes to gadgets, as Bruce just lost all of his fortune to Lucius Fox. Well, he gave it away, that is. And Lucius is out of the Batman game. Bruce is on his own this time around when it comes to equipping himself, and he only has his own ingenuity and the help of the Batfam to back him up.
Coming in at number 10, we have Eclipso, the alleged former Wrath of God. A supernatural agent of chaos with his face permanently in the shade of a constant eclipse, Eclipso claimed to be the one who carried out the biblical flood of Noah's Ark, and that he was replaced in his position as the physical embodiment of God's wrath by the Spectre, because Eclipso was just too violent and angry for the role. Older than almost every other being on Earth, Eclipso has fought many heroes over the years, and even though he no longer possesses the power of a full god, he is still an extremely dangerous magical being, and who knows what he'll do next to try and regain his power. Coming in at number 9, we have Starro the Conqueror, specifically the version seen in James Gunn's 2021 film, The Suicide Squad. Found by American astronauts during the early days of the Cold War merely drifting through space, Starro was imprisoned and tortured for 30 years by the American government on the island Corto Maltese when it was discovered that Starro possessed incredible telepathic mind control powers that the government seek to learn how to weaponize. Although he eventually had to be taken down by the Suicide Squad when his anger at being imprisoned caused him to go on a rampage, Starro's story wound up being a tragic one, as his sad last words were, "I was happy, floating, staring at the stars." Rest in peace, Starro. Hopefully there's lots of stars to look at in big, mysterious kaiju heaven. Coming in at number 8, we have the Lord of Chaos, Dominus. An enemy of Superman's, Dominus was originally a peaceful magic user on his alien homeworld, who soon became jealous when the woman he loved ascended past him and became the magical leader of their planet. Filled with envy and rage, Dominus was imprisoned in the Phantom Zone as punishment for attempting to betray his love, and over the course of his long imprisonment, Dominus soon learned to embrace the chaos of magic and managed to free himself through a gateway in Superman's Fortress of Solitude. With strength to rival the Man of Steel himself and magical abilities that can completely distort reality, Dominus is one of the most unpredictable and dangerous magic wielders in the entire DC universe.
And at 7, Bronze Tiger. Bronze Tiger, also known as Ben Turner, is a master martial artist renowned worldwide for his combat skills. His journey began with Richard Dragon under the guise of O-Sensei, but he later fell victim to the League of Assassins' brainwashing, transforming him into one of its deadliest killers. Despite their programming, Ben eventually broke free from their control, choosing to embrace heroism instead. His childhood in an upper middle class black neighborhood took a dark turn when at age 10 he killed a burglar that was assaulting his parents. Struggling with anger and homicidal urges as all 10-year-olds do, he turns to martial arts, seeking discipline and control, but again, his anger persisted, leading him to, become a criminal. Recognizing the dangerous path that he was on, Ben embarked on a journey around the world seeking guidance, and he ends up becoming a hero, but he was a villain, and that's why I'm putting him on this list. Plus, Ben Turner in Arrow is pretty freaking dope, so yeah. And at 6, Huntress. Helena Bertinelli, also known as the Huntress, was once a rogue and vengeful vigilante seeking to destroy her father's criminal empire after he had her fiancé, Michael Stan, killed. Her paths crossed with Oliver Queen, who intervened to save her from her father's deadly scheme, but realizing that Oliver's different approach to justice didn't really work for her, she left Starling. Later on, Helena returned with a vendetta against her father, who sought protection by cooperating with the authorities, but Oliver tried to stop her again, but she escaped. Because he wouldn't kill her, because he had boinked her. This is all from the TV show, by the way. A year later, she resurfaced when Team Arrow confronted her father again, leading to his ultimate demise, but she wasn't the one to do it, so she was upset about that, because if you want your father to die and you aren't the one who does it, apparently that's a bad thing. In the ensuing chaos, she gets arrested and sent to prison, finally. In the comics, she's like a vigilante hero, but in the show, she was definitely a villain, so that's why I'm putting her on the list, alright? That's why it's the Arrow version.
Number 5,
5. Trigon. Trigon was a regular evil ruler of a planet until one day a group of aliens known as the Divine showed up, hoping to use something called the Great Heart of Darkness to eat his soul and cleanse the planet of evil. This backfired as Trigon absorbed the heart and gained the power of 100 galaxies worth of collected evils. It was at this point that the Divine revealed that they were not a boy band as their name suggested, but were in fact his parents. This family reunion was cut short when Trigon skinned them and wore them like coats. He would go on to have many sons whose mothers he would kill, and one daughter, Raven. Raven would not end up going into the family business, but would instead end up joining the Teen Titans and becoming Trigon's greatest enemy. He has mind control powers, shape-shifting, dimensional travel, the ability to manipulate matter, and telepathy and telekinesis, just to name a few of his powers. He is immortal, having apparently been around since the dawn of time, and nearly invulnerable, having shrugged off blows from Wonder Girl and Superboy, with Superboy even saying that punching Trigon felt like trying to destroy a mountain with a teaspoon. Number 4. Darkseid. After the old gods died in a battle against evil, the planets New Genesis and Apocalypse were born. The latter fell under the control of an evil and tyrannical new god called Darkseid. New Genesis housed the source of all life, the life equation, and Darkseid became obsessed with finding its opposite force, the anti-life equation. He discovered that the anti-life equation was on the planet Earth and began a campaign to conquer the planet, bringing him into constant conflict with the members of the Justice League, particularly Superman. He is all but immortal, invulnerable, and super strong. As if that wasn't bad enough, he is also an incredible tactician with a keen scientific mind who has telepathic powers and the ability to shoot omega beams from his eyes, which he can use to either destroy or teleport his victims, such as when he sent Batman back to caveman times at the end of Final Crisis, essentially turning the Dark Knight into a temporal bomb. Even Superman has trouble going toe-to-toe with this god, whose only weakness is a substance called radium. Number 3. Mr. Mxyzptlk. Mr. Mxyzptlk is a fifth-dimensional being who has developed an obsession with Superman and likes to spend his time harassing the Man of Steel and putting him through various ordeals for his own amusement. He can fly, teleport, and create essentially anything he likes with just a thought. He is also a character with cosmic awareness, sometimes speaking directly to the reader as though he is aware of his place in a comic book. He is a relatively benign nuisance most of the time, merely wanting to put Superman through the ringer with his various cosmic pranks, but he is capable of extreme villainy when he wants to be, such as in Alan Moore's Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, where he grows bored and decides to become truly evil, manipulating events to kill several of Superman's friends and ruining his life in the process. Mixie is so powerful that even he thinks it's unfair. So, to be a good sport, he gave himself a weakness that makes it so that the only way to stop him is to trick Mr. Mxyzptlk into saying his name backwards, which is of course Kiltipzixum. When you consider that this is a self-imposed weakness, and in theory if he wanted to remove this rule he could at any time, it makes you realize just how unstoppable he really is. Number 2. The Anti-Monitor. When a scientist on the planet Oa developed a screen to witness the creation of the universe, this caused a massive explosion which split reality and formed the multiverse. The Oans began a civil war, and several of them left for the Qward dimension, seeking the means to become all-powerful. Qward was in the antimatter dimension, and one day an excess energy on Qward's moon formed into a being known as the Anti-Monitor, who fed off of the evil energy of the antimatter universe and took over his universe. He wanted to then destroy all the positive matter universes in order to become as powerful as possible, causing the Crisis on Infinite Earths, where he went to war with the various superheroes of the multiverse, which resulted in the multiverse being streamlined into one universe. Barely any of those sound like real words. He has destroyed and absorbed over 1,000 universes and is capable of being able to alter reality and increase the power levels of the villains who serve him. He is essentially immortal, being able to fight the strongest heroes from hundreds of universes at once without taking any apparent damage. It was only through the actions of the Spectre, who had been empowered by all of the various DC Universe's most powerful sorcerers, that the heroes were able to defeat him at the dawn of time. He was eventually killed by Superman 2, but was restored to life when the multiverse was recreated. Number 1. Necron. Necron's origins are shrouded in mystery, with rumors that he existed before life or was created by darkness itself to serve as its protector. Other stories say that he was imprisoned into the land of the unliving by the guardians of the universe near the beginning of time. For most of eternity he was unaware of life, but once he discovered its existence, he became obsessed with becoming its master. He fought against the Green Lantern several times with his army of the undead until he formed his own Lantern Corps by trapping the Anti-Monitor in his own central power battery. The Black Lanterns are comprised of dead superheroes as well as the entire population of the destroyed Coast City, who he has resurrected and forced to fight on his behalf. Even when his physical form is defeated, as he was never technically alive, he is simply sent back to the land of the unliving to begin plotting a new scheme to destroy life itself.
Number 10. Brainiac. The Collector of Worlds, kinda like those weirdos who collect snow globes. Brainiac is considered one of Superman's stronger and actually not boring foes. Brainiac's level of intellect supersedes humans by several centuries of advanced knowledge. He's so smart that his intelligence actually creates his other powers, if that even makes sense. For example, he can interconnect his consciousness with other computer systems, possess other beings, and even transfer knowledge and information to himself from others. The original Brainiac's purpose was to capture cities and assimilate knowledge in order to gain power. Part of his operating procedure is collecting civilizations for study and preserving his knowledge of alien species so that he remains the most supreme being in the universe, and then destroying planets and galaxies in his wake to prevent the knowledge from spreading. Thanks to Brainiac's mechanical body, he is immune to aging, with his exact age never being specified, but he was alive long before Krypton's destruction, making him several thousand years old at the least, and he has the ability to recover himself as long as a single line of his DNA remains. Number 9. Granny Goodness. Granny Goodness is probably the complete opposite of anything we would describe as goodness. She was originally one of the lowlies, basically the peasant class on Apokolips. From a younger age, she was taken by Darkseid and raised and trained to become head of the Shock Troops and of the Female Furies. She has the responsibility to bring young warriors from other worlds to fight each other to earn the right to be trained by her. But Granny Goodness also has multiple orphanages where she both trains and disciplines younger individuals looking for potential warriors for Darkseid. Being a resident of Apokolips, Granny here does have quite a bit of power. She has superhuman strength, speed, durability, and senses, as well as invulnerability, an advanced immune system, and yes, that's right, immortality. But being immortal doesn't necessarily save you from looking old as hell, which is why we get Granny Goodness. Number 8. Vandal Savage. When you think of intelligence, you don't often think of cavemen, but there is one caveman who can proudly make this list. Vandal Savage was alive 50,000 years ago as chief of a tribe of other cavemen, but when he came into contact with a strange meteorite, it exploded and bathed him in this strange alien radiation that gave him immunity to aging, disease, and fatigue, meaning he is effectively immortal. The meteorite also increased his intelligence to superhuman levels, which combined with 50,000 years of learning, experiencing, and living alongside every single technological innovation in the history of man ever, Vandal Savage possesses skills in almost all areas of the human experience, even basically becoming immune to pain. Specifically though, he focuses on the tactical skills that would help him become a world conqueror. Because he's a villain, that's what happens.
Number 7. Superboy Prime. Just because Superman can't take Darkseid alone, it doesn't mean that another version of the character couldn't stand a fighting chance. Superboy Prime, or Superman Prime as he is often referred to now, might not have the physical strength, but it could be possible that he could manipulate reality to make Darkseid weaker, or even cause him to just not exist. How? With just a punch. There was a time in the comics where Superboy Prime was shown to be so strong that he punched reality, splintering it and in essence reshaping it. If Superboy Prime has the power to punch retcons into existence, what can't he do? Number 6. Volthoom. Volthoom is the very first Lantern who, after receiving the very first Lantern ring from the Guardians of the Universe, turned dark, losing control of all the emotions within himself. Or maybe he was a little dark even before that. He killed millions of people and enjoys sowing discord and creating chaos. At one point, he also almost succeeded in taking hold of the universe and reshaping it in his own image. It took the collective power of Parallax Sinestro, Necron, and a Black Lantern, Hal Jordan, to stop him.
He can warp reality, manipulate time, and has increased durability. He's taken on an army of Black Lanterns all by himself, and at one point was powerful enough to hold the universe in his hand. I'm pretty sure if there is anyone who could take on Darkseid solo, it would be Volthoom. Number 5. Starro the Conqueror. Starro is a frightening enemy. Not only is there the potential for Starro to simply take hold of Darkseid and use him as a pawn, which we have actually seen pictured in the Future State Justice League series in issue 1, but you can have a Starro that could be up to thousands of miles across. Their sizes greatly vary, meaning that you could have a Starro simply capable of crushing Darkseid if it wanted to. Though honestly, taking his mind hostage and using him as a weapon for its own purpose is a far more terrifying prospect. Not just for our heroes, but I imagine for Darkseid as well. Number 4. The Darkest Knight. I never thought I'd consider Batman Who Laughs to be such a powerful threat, but after he took the brain of final Bruce Wayne, who basically had the powers of Dr. Manhattan, he became one of the most powerful beings in the universe. True, he was defeated by Wonder Woman, but if we can imagine a scenario outside of Dark Knight's death metal, where with his newly acquired power he squared off with Darkseid, it would be easy to see how he could win against that villain. With Dr. Manhattan's abilities, there would be almost no feat of power too great for him to accomplish. In his Darkest Knight form, the Batman Who Laughs became invulnerable and immortal, which would also make it very hard for Darkseid to not only wound him, but defeat him as well. Number 3. Anti-Monitor. Many consider the Anti-Monitor to be one of DC's greatest threats. It usually comes down to either Anti-Monitor or Darkseid when you ask fans who is the most powerful and fearsome antagonist of the DC universe. The thing with Anti-Monitor is most of his stories have included threatening not just multiple worlds, but entire multiverses. So compared to Darkseid, he's generally on another scale. And not just in terms of threats and power, but also just in terms of actual size. Darkseid is typically shown as being an intimidating height, but only really in comparison to other superpowered beings and humans. He's like anywhere from a few feet taller to double their size. Anti-Monitor, on the other hand, is generally depicted as being hundreds of feet tall. So unless we are giving Darkseid a major boost to his size, Anti-Monitor could just squish him like a bug. Of course, we did give Darkseid a major boost to his size when the two fought, but even then Darkseid ended up dying. Of course, it wasn't Anti-Monitor who caused his apparent death, but it still happened while they were fighting, so hey, I'm counting it. Number 2. Perpetua. Perpetua is also likely a character who could take Darkseid, considering that she has destroyed entire alternate Earths before and even managed to break the Source Wall. Pretty impressive and terrifying stuff. Perpetua, for those who don't know, is an agent of the Source who went rogue. Initially, she was on a mission of creation, but instead decided to turn to the side of chaos and destruction, with a plan to remake the multiverse in her own image. Some might think that Perpetua isn't so scary or strong, considering she has only been shown to destroy a single universe at a time. But in reality, when we saw her wreaking havoc in Death Metal, she was not yet back to her full strength. If Perpetua was back at her max strength of power, there's no telling just how much destruction she could bring about within an instant. Number 1. Trigon. In the animated film Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, we saw just what Trigon was capable of in the fight against Darkseid. And I know what you're thinking, how is Trigon more powerful than Perpetua, Amanda? But I'm giving this one to him because of this fight. Raven accidentally lost control of Trigon and set him loose on Apocalypse. Trigon in the film at least was shown to be strong enough to match Darkseid in power, if not beat him. Initially, that's because Trigon possessed Superman, using him as a host to fight Darkseid. But afterwards, Raven and Constantine team up to give Trigon back his own body, realizing that he is the key to defeating Darkseid, giving them enough time to escape back to Earth and enact Cyborg's plan to destroy Apocalypse. When Trigon gets his body back, he poses a very real threat to Darkseid, to the point that at one point Darkseid attempts to basically run away, but Trigon does not let him. As Apocalypse is destroyed, so are both of the villains, as Trigon holds Darkseid back, preventing him from fleeing.
Number 10. Count Vertigo. Now aptly named Werner Vertigo, he is a man who was born with an inner ear defect that affected his balance. So naturally he was implanted with a device that not only corrected that, but also gave him the ability to cause extreme vertigo in other people. That's right, his entire ability is disrupting his enemy's balance, and honestly you might think that's not really anything to write home about, but trust me, it is a lot more useful than you might think. Now Count Vertigo uses his ability to mess up the aim of even the best marksmen, to disrupt the guidance system of some of the most high-tech machinery, and even uses it to to manipulate the emotions of people, causing them to flop between emotions like crazy. Now there are also 2 other Count Vertigos that fought against Green Arrow, but they use drugs to cause the same effects in their victims, and we are going to ignore them because using drugs is not cool.
It's true, it's not cool.
It's really not.
Number 9, Calendar Man. Calendar Man to most people is just a guy who's obsessed with the date. But in reality, he is also one of the most accomplished villains. During his first appearance, he almost managed to defeat Batman, one of the greatest and smartest detectives in the world, straight out of the gate, by giving him an almost unsolvable problem. Calendar Man sent an anonymous letter promising to commit 5 crimes, one each day, each one corresponding to a particular season and theme, with the 5th day also being a clue as to the true identity of Calendar Man, with the 5th season. Batman failed to capture Calendar Man on the first 4 days, often arriving too late to the scene of the crime. And on the 5th day, it was only an ad for Calendar Man's side hustle as a magician who was playing 5 days at the Bijou Theater in Gotham that allowed Batman to connect the dots. Where would Batman be without ads from the local newspaper? Local newspapers, they're important.
They really are. You always gotta support local.
Yeah.
Number 8, Phobia. Quite possibly one of the most underrated villains in the DC universe, Angela Hawkins III is Phobia, a member of the Brotherhood of Evil and constant enemy of the new Teen Titans that is capable of bringing your deepest and darkest fears to the surface. She basically uses psychic abilities to access the fear center of your brain and creates incredibly lifelike illusions that incapacitate pretty much everyone except for a select few who have been shown to be immune. Funnily enough, she is actually not immune to her own powers because she has some deep, dark insecurities and phobias hidden away as well, behind that, tough exterior. And that was exploited by Raven in an attempt to convert her to the hero side of things. Obviously that didn't work though, because since then, she has joined the Injustice League as a new member.
Number 7, Lady Shiva. She's been known as a villain and a hero since her first debut in Richard Dragon Kung Fu Fighter issue 5. Now, Lady Shiva and the assassin David Kane did have a child named Cassandra Cain, who was the 4th Batgirl. She also had another child as well in another comic, which I'll explain a little later on in this list. So she made her first debut in Batman issue 567, called The Mark of Cain. When Lady Shiva had her, she was born with the intention to serve as a bodyguard for Ra's al Ghul. Her father, of course, trained her as a child, so she wasn't taught to speak though, that's the thing. He would instead use actions to communicate with young Cassandra. That, and they cut her off from the outside world, only exposing her to the things that she needs only when necessary. So not the most fun childhood, that's for sure. So what ended up happening is that part of the brain that registers speech and language processing was instead being used to read other people's body language, like super well. So this made her a great fighter. She could predict the moves that somebody was going to do before she did them. Number 6, Ursa. She was a Kryptonian military officer who was loyal to General Zod. But of course she was banished to the Phantom Zone with him, and then in there they conceived a child. That child's name was Lor-Zod. They conceived him in the Phantom Zone until he arrived by pod to Earth. So this young boy was lifting TV sets and cars like it was nothing. Everybody was soon looking his direction. It was obvious that he wasn't from around here. So the Department of Metahumans Affairs decided to take the boy to a secret place in Washington to do tests and all that jazz. But they didn't tell Superman, which is not a great idea. He broke Lor-Zod out and then convinced Lois to adopt the young boy, naming him Christopher Kent. And yes, he is also immune to kryptonite. Now, of course, he has similar powers to Superman, but the most unique ability Christopher Kent has is that of telekinesis. Number 5, Cheshire. Made her first comic book debut in New Titans Annual Issue 2. She's an assassin and a mercenary who uses potions. She's often gone head-to-head with the Titans, and sometimes she gets a little closer than what we would imagine. Turns out she fell in love with one of those Titans. She fell in love with Roy Harper, aka Arsenal. See, originally Roy went undercover for the government in a mission to try and turn her over, but they fell in love during this mission. Classic. So he knew there was no way he could turn her in, so he just left. He just called it off. So Jade didn't know his true identity until years later, but after their romance took off, their daughter Lian was welcomed to the world with Roy raising her. See, sometimes it ends up okay, sometimes it's weird, sometimes it's okay. This next one though is pretty weird. Number 4, Orca. This next one takes place in the Injustice Elseworld series, where Killer Croc and Orca are actually married. Yeah, it's nice when it starts with the two of them being together already. Like, no one has to go to jail, no one's getting broken out, no one's conceiving children in the Phantom Zone. It's nice, it's fun. It's weird, but it's fine, at least in terms of villains. Now, in Injustice 2, issue 42, Orca walks in, simply announces that she's pregnant, and then a nice spit take is the first response. And then Killer Croc stands up and he's like, well, I should probably go. And then everyone's like, I have so many questions, but if you ask questions, Killer Croc will not answer them. He'll instead put your head through a wall. So keep those thoughts to yourself, my friend. That child would be quite the unit. I mean, Orca mixed with Killer Croc, I would never want to bump into this family in any parking lot ever. That sounds like a nightmare. They're cute though, they're happy. Number 3, Lady Shiva. Again, this time we're talking about Lady Shiva from the Dark Multiverse. See, your partner this time around was none other than back-breaking Bane, and they had a son named Torn, and this happened right after Bane had actually broke the Batman. Now, cut to 30 years down the road, John Paul Valley is the new Batman, and poor young Torn had to watch his father get broken by the Bat this time around. So he trained with his mother in the League of Assassins, and then when he got a little bit older, it was time. They freed Bruce Wayne from capture in Gotham City and helped restore him to the mantle of Batman so they can get revenge on John Paul Valley. And as far as villain mothers go, this isn't too bad. I mean, anything that involves breaking Batman out to get revenge, hey, I'm on board, sign me up. Number 2, Maxima. Making her first appearance in Action Comics issue 645, Maxima is the oldest child of the royal family of Almerac. She came to Earth in search for a suitable mate, and then when she laid eyes on Superman, she knew he was the one. Just because they were compatible doesn't mean it's gonna happen. So Superman rejected this offer, so she went ahead and teamed up with Brainiac for a bit more before ultimately turning against him and joining the reformed Justice League. Now down the road, she again offered herself up to Superman because, you know, she's a better person now and doing good deeds. But again, Superman said nay. He was married to Lois, so it's just not in the cards. Sorry, Maxima, it's not gonna happen. But in Adventures of Superman Annual 3, we see a front cover that makes readers turn their heads. Well, after an untimely passing, Lois Lane sadly wasn't really in the picture anymore. Clark sadly felt responsible for not saving her, you know, typical hero stuff, typical guilt. So he left Earth, he couldn't bear it. He felt he didn't belong there anymore, truly. And while Superman was being attacked in space, Maxima came to their rescue. And Superman, well, he decided to stick around, not having anywhere else to go. He figured, why not? Now this escalated, they had their ups and downs, but in the comic it implies that the two eventually had kids. So the lesson here, folks, is if you get rejected, just keep trying, because maybe your dream man will just come swooping by you in space out of the blue. You never know. And finally, number 1, Harley Quinn. Of course, we have to mention the time Harley had children. Now, this is from the DCAU, where we don't necessarily see her children directly, but we meet Dee Dee, her 2 granddaughters who were twins, and they're just a load of fun. They were referred to as Dee Dee because it's cute and it sounds cool, but their names were actually Delilah and Daydream. So she had raised these twins in hopes of keeping them away from the life of crime, but they inherited the same fascination that Harley once had with the Joker. So this was easier said than done. They both ended up joining his gang when they were just teenagers. Honestly, anything that has to do with twins is just so fun to watch. Even if they're evil, I'm like, yeah, you guys look like you're coordinated, you're wearing the same thing, it's great. Well guys, there you have it. Which of these DC villains would you pick as your mother? If you had to pick one, let us know in the comments down below. I'm excited to see what you guys come up with.
Number 10, Carol and Jane Kent. These 2 alternate Supergirls, Superwomen, may not have the flashiest of costumes, but they get some bonus hotness points for being the capable, smart, and eventually futuristic versions of Supergirl. In the miniseries Superman Secret Identity, there doesn't appear to be a cousin to Superman that we are introduced to. Instead, he meets his own alternate version of Lois, falls in love, and the 2 have a family together. Their 2 twin daughters, Carol and Jane, don't initially appear to have superpowers as they grow up, but once they are young adults, Clark thinks he spots them in the sky, and eventually it is revealed that they are this alternate universe's Supergirl twin team. 2 Supergirls is better than 1 Supergirl. Number 9, New 52 Supergirl. This version of Supergirl ended up becoming a Red Lantern. She was pulled to the side of confusion and rage after she crash landed on Earth and was met by a man claiming to be Kal-El, her cousin. This confused version of Kara didn't believe him, as her last memory of her cousin was of him as a baby, and she didn't know that her pod had been stuck in orbit around the sun for about 2 decades, giving Superman, who got to Earth first, enough time to grow up while Kara remained frozen as a teenager in her pod, not aging. After their fight, Kara left Earth to investigate. Eventually, the rage she felt over the loss of Krypton and her guilt as a survivor prompted a Red Lantern ring to seek her out. New 52 Supergirl wears a small one-piece bodysuit instead of a top and skirt. This shows off more of her legs, but also, I think, makes more sense than a skirt, given all the flying she does. She also has a really sweet cape. Number 8, Amikami Supergirl. In this reality, Supergirl is actually the cousin to Power Girl and is sent after as the older cousin to take care of younger Power Girl. But Power Girl arrives on Earth far ahead of her older cousin, so by the time Supergirl, Kara Zor-El, arrives, Power Girl is now the older of the two. Supergirl here is drawn in a more anime style, and her crop top appears to be a little bit shorter. Her cape also sometimes appears to be longer, and 3 sort of separate pieces of fabric that trail behind her as she flies. Number 7, Kara Inzi. For those who originally were introduced to the world of comics via cartoons or animated series, this alternate version of Supergirl from the DCAU may hold a special place in your heart, and perhaps in your loins. Kara Inzi appeared in the Superman animated series in the 90s and Justice League Unlimited. For some, her determination, bravery, and overall sassiness were the main appeal. Her original outfit was actually taken from comic alternate Linda Danvers. Although the show wanted to use the name Kara Zor-El and bring Supergirl into the then DCAU just straight up, DC at the time said no to their request, forcing them to create an alternate inspired version of Supergirl known as Kara Inzi. This was because of DC's precedent at the time that Superman remained the only surviving Kryptonian. There can only be one. Number 6, Galatea. Galatea is the evil clone of Kara Inzi from the DCAU. This version of Kara goes by the name Galatea, has shorter cut hair, and is often portrayed as an older version of Supergirl. She more closely resembles Power Girl, despite being a fairly straight-up clone of Supergirl. Galatea was created by Star Labs, who got their hands on Supergirl's genetic material while she was in their medical care, after she had been caught in the explosion of a kryptonite missile. Galatea fought with Supergirl after the two discovered that they were psychically linked. Galatea was wounded in that fight and forced to retreat and recover at Star Labs, where she was also artificially aged to the point of her physical prime, granting her more power, enhanced strength, and a more developed figure and stature. She's taller. Number 5, Linda Danvers. Linda Danvers is an alternate version of Supergirl who is also super confusing. But because I am a fan of confusing things and I'm a fan of her cute outfit, I wanted to include her on this list, so I'm going to do my best to try to explain who exactly she is. Matrix was the version of Supergirl who merges with Linda Danvers to become an all-new version of Supergirl. Who or what is Matrix? Well, basically Matrix is a shape-shifting entity created by a good-ish version of Lex Luthor and given that universe's Lana Lang's memories. Matrix merged with the Linda Danvers as she lay dying, causing them to become one entity in order to save Linda's life. Except that Linda then also kind of had her own separate consciousness, separate from Matrix. Sometimes one of them is stronger, more of a dominant presence in their body than the other. Matrix could now only shift between the two forms of brunette Linda and a blonde Supergirl, and later finds out that when merging with Linda at the time of her death, they actually became a new being also referred to as an Earthborn Angel. In their case, an Earthborn Angel of Fire. This version of Supergirl was hot and brave enough to have Superman of Earth 1 fall in love with her, which is kind of creepy because a little incestuous, but also not really incestuous because alternate Earths. While also being kind of sweet. Creepy and sweet. Ugh. Number 4, Sirel. This alternate version of Supergirl is actually from a potential future. She initially claims to be the daughter of Superman and Lois Lane, after Lois Lane freaks out thinking Superman had an affair in the future that leads to Sirel being born. While Superman is confirmed to be her genetic father, Lois is not confirmed to be her genetic mother. In the end, we find out that she was actually made by Brainiac 12 using Superman's genetic material, and that she has an alter ego residing within her, a woman named Mia, who hates both Sirel and Superman. In the end, Sirel ends up sacrificing herself to save her father and humanity from the Yes virus, which she was designed to spread, and from the violent future that the virus would have created. She's another strange, but still quite hot, alternate version of Supergirl. Apparently, we'd like our Supergirls to kind of have confusing backstories. Number 3. DC Bombshell Supergirl. In the alternate universe of the DC Bombshell, Supergirl's pod ends up crash landing in Russia instead of America. She is then taken in by a Russian couple, Apati and Varvara, who raise her alongside their daughter, Courtney Duganova. Courtney herself was the biological daughter of Varvara, but not of Apati. Varvara had an affair with an Englishman, but was forced to flee to Siberia with her new daughter. It was there that she met and married her husband, Apati. Both sisters end up joining the Russian Air Force, and after Courtney's plane explodes and Kara uses her powers to save her, the Russian government decides to make these two women their new faces of the Russian military. Courtney is given a cosmic staff and becomes, surprise surprise, Stargirl, and Kara, with her Kryptonian powers, is called Supergirl. Number 2. Dark Supergirl. Dark Supergirl was created with black kryptonites. We later find out that she is actually a part of Supergirl herself and is simply the darker, evil parts of her split off. Dark Supergirl ends up taking on members of the Justice League, but in the end was defeated when Wonder Woman ended up accidentally re-merging the good Supergirl and evil Supergirl back into one being, using her lasso of truth. The Dark Supergirl persona remained with Kara for a time, residing within her, and would sometimes kind of pop back up. Eventually it was discovered that this personality split was being caused by Kara's mental health, as she was suffering from severe PTSD and guilt, and in the end, she was able to reconcile this divide by forgiving herself and acknowledging that she was not to blame for the destruction of Krypton. Number 1. Power Girl. Okay, well, Power Girl isn't really a straight up alternate version of Kara and is more of a completely different person who in continuity existed really before Supergirl, though historically her character wasn't introduced in the comics until the 70s. Power Girl is considered one of the hottest characters in DC. Period. Never mind as a potential alternate of anyone. So of course I couldn't have a Supergirl list without mentioning her, even if she is less of an alternate version and more of simply her own character with a similar backstory from an alternate Earth. A lot of people do still consider Power Girl to be an alternate version of Supergirl, even though it's really not that cut and dry, but she is also like a version of Supergirl, I guess. Earth 2 Supergirl, if you will. Except that maybe Supergirl is an alternate version of her? I don't know. They're alternates of each other. They're equal. That's all I'm saying about it. Number 10. Harley Quinn and her gang of Harleys. These alternate versions of Harleys have actually been approved by the main gal herself. The gang of Harleys were recruited by Harley herself after Poison Ivy suggested that Harley was overworking and could use some help. Over 80 people applied to join Harley's gang, and so to help her eliminate some of the competition, Harley turns off the lights and tells them to fight one another. This allows her to reduce the number of applicants considerably. The gang has changed slightly over the years, but recently reappeared in DC Black Label's Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, looking fine as ever. I also just love that they have one male Harley Quinn, and I personally think Harley does it really well when she creates gangs, like with the Quintets or the current Harley Quinn animated series. There is strength in numbers for her. Number 9. Dark Prince Charming. This version of Harley Quinn comes to us from Batman the Dark Prince Charming series. This alternate is kind of a brat, but being a brat is considered hot by some, no? I mostly included this Harley here though for her look, which I just think is so different but is also super cute. She's still got that red and black corset vibe, but with a dark tutu. The look for both her and the Joker here is sort of Victorian inspired, with Harley also in a black garter with some red and black thigh highs attached, and some white button-up boots with heels. She wears a white ruffle around her neck, and her hair is done up in two almost Elizabethan style combs. Number 8. Bombshell. This version of Harley is turned to madness not so much by the Joker himself, but by a dream version of him. In the DC Bombshells universe, Harleen and Mr. J became a sort of Bonnie and Clyde style couple with a Robin Hood attitude. But Harleen left Mr. J when she felt he was becoming more dark and dangerous. Instead, she turned to psychology, training and practicing until she became known for her skills as a psychiatrist. She ended up working at Arkham Ward in London, but a dream her patient had of someone who resembled Mr. J set Harleen off, causing her to have a psychotic break and become insane. She ends up stealing the female dance partners of some English soldiers at a Christmas party, meets Officer Hal Jordan, seduces him, and steals his plane, and as such is often depicted in a Harleen bra-like top and shorts with thigh-high socks and, of course, a bomber jacket. A pretty great look, I must say. Number 7. Power Girl. Although this isn't exactly actually an alternate version of Harley from another universe, it is a dramatic alternate look that I thought was worthy of making this cut. This version of Harley is from the 2016 Harley Quinn series. For a while, Harley finds herself obsessing over Power Girl, who actually becomes a friend to Harley, surprisingly. Harley Quinn has always been such a great character because she's so versatile. She can be good, she can be bad, she can wear pretty much anything she wants and make it work. She's just an interesting character who's kind of trying to find out who she really is and wants to be through redesigning her look and exploring different sides of herself, which I think is something we can all relate to at some point. Well, for a while she wanted to be like Power Girl, which led her to dressing in a Power Girl inspired outfit of her Harley Quinn suit, boob window and all. Number 6. Thrill Killer. In the miniseries Thrill Killer, which takes place on the alternate universe of Earth 37, we meet Haley Fitzpatrick, who is this universe's Harley Quinn. Haley is a high school girl who becomes the partner in crime to this alternate universe's Joker. In this universe, the Joker is still a criminal, but is a female, who is known by the name Bianca Steeplechase. This version of the Joker and Harley do end up being not just partners in crime, but in romance also. And the two, while still being villains, are much kinder to one another, and both seem to genuinely care for each other and reciprocate each other's love for one another. It's like a nicer version of their relationship, to be honest. Number 5. White Knight. This version of Harley leaves the Joker when she realizes the only person he loves is Batman. After the Joker is cured from his insanity, however, she returns to him. The Joker, aka Jack Napier in this version, has just apologized to his Harley Quinn and proposed to her after the real Harley Quinn shows up, revealing the one who was with him at the time was actually an imposter and a fake who took over after the real Harley Quinn disappeared. These two ditch the imposter and set out trying to actually mend their past and learn how to be together and love one another in a healthy way. This version just goes to show how great and supportive a partner Harley can be. And I don't know about you, but I think her kindness and understanding that this alternate shows only elevates her hotness factor. Although I also think that this is also within main Harley as well. This time, her and the Joker stop Batman for the right reasons, becoming the heroes of this story. Number 4. Injustice Harley. After the death of the Joker at Superman's hands in the Injustice universe, Harley finds herself teaming up with the good guys to avenge his death. Whether we are talking video games or comics here, this version of Harley looks good either way, and she also kinda is good. Her blonde hair is up in her famous red and blue tipped pigtails, and she wears goggles on her head. Kind of a similar look to her DC Bombshell version, actually. This version of Harley works on the side of Batman and the Insurgency, and later on works surprisingly closely with Green Arrow as well. She prefers to go by her real name, Harleen. In the video games, she is also voiced by Tara Strong, whose Harley voice is known for being a fan favorite. Who's your favorite voice for Harley Quinn? Who's your favorite voice actor to play her? Let us know in the comments. Number 3. Harleen. This version of Harley is one of the most stunning just because of how beautifully she is illustrated. This version of Harley comes to us from the DC Black Label book Harleen, which explores the origins of Harley Quinn, her budding romance with the Joker, and her descent into madness. It has got to be one of the best books for helping you to understand just how racy and dangerous the romance was between these two, and how powerful those initial sparks were. The art by Steven Sedgwick also just lends really well to the ultra steamy, secretive feel of this risque version of the psychiatrist known as Harleen Quinzel. Number 2. Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie has played Harley Quinn in both the film Suicide Squad and Harley Quinn Birds of Prey, and both times she has killed it. She is likely one of the hottest versions of Harley because her version of Harley is real life. Or as close as we'll get to real life Harley anyways. Granted, it's not just Robbie alone, but an entire crew of professionals who help bring hers and DC's vision of the character to life. And stunt doubles, who help to make Harley look just as badass as ever. Although Margot Robbie proudly tries to do as many stunts as possible and as many as the studios will let her do. And it's not just the fact that this version of Harley is live action that adds to her appeal, but that Robbie makes Harley's sometimes ridiculous or dramatic struggles feel so grounded and somehow relatable. Number 1. Batman Animated Series. We can't talk about the hotness that is Harley Quinn without paying tribute to the version of her that originally got everyone hooked. Now, can we? This version of Harley was voiced by Arlene Sorkin. Sorkin is really the one who made Harley's voice as iconic as it is today. Now it feels weird if Harley is without her high-pitched tone or New York accent. Harley in the animated series was a very loyal companion of the Joker's, and many fans still prefer her full suited jester costume than any other look she has had over the years, proving that no matter how much or how little clothing Harley wears, she makes almost any outfit look good, with her winning wit and silly yet dark sense of humor. I think what many fans really loved about this version of Harley was how smart and brilliant yet underappreciated she was. Also, her loyalty. No matter how many times Joker put her down, she stayed very loyal to her Puddin', as problematic as their relationship was, or how many times he tried to kill her.
And at number 10, we've got Supergirl. While some of you may argue that she should be at a higher spot on this list, there's just something innocent about Supergirl that makes it feel a little bit weird objectifying the crap out of her. But regardless, Kara is definitely an undeniable babe. Kara Zor-El first arrived on the scene in 1958, but didn't take up the alias of Supergirl until 1959 in Action Comics number 252. She's Superman's cousin and suffers from the same vulnerability of kryptonite as he does. She even has a show on the CW all about her, which goes to show how long of a way she's come from being an underrated teen sidekick in her first comic book appearance. And at number 9, we've got White Canary. Here's a little shout out to another CW show, Legends of Tomorrow. This is Sarah Lance. She's a part of the Arrowverse as the White Canary, who is partially based off of the Black Canary, and used to be an assassin before turning to the light side. Originally a villain for Green Arrow, Sarah is one of the lead characters in a time-traveling assault team determined to take down Vandal Savage. She's also a fan favorite with the LGBT community. Clearly, she's known for charming the hell out of a lot of women throughout her time travels, and actually at the start of season 2 is promoted to captain of the Wave Rider and leader of the Legends when Rip disappears. And at number 8 is Jessica Jones. While her comic book persona may be a tad bland in the sex appeal department, there's no denying that Kristen Ritter's portrayal of Jessica Jones on the Netflix show is super hot. Who doesn't love an independent badass with a mild drinking problem? I know I do. Plus, did you see that sex scene with Luke Cage? Damn. And there's a whole lot of shippers out there who think that her and Trish might actually end up together in season 2. Once again, damn. Number 7. Batwoman. This is the first of a few redheads to make it on our list. Batwoman has a long history in the Batman canon, first appearing as one of the members of the Batman family in Detective Comics 233. As most of you know, the creation of the Bat family was partly inspired by Frederick Wortham's claim that Batman and Robin were depicted as gay in the comics. Well, wouldn't Wortham be turning in his grave if he found out what Batwoman has been up to these days? Or at least in J.H. William III's portrayal of her. Regardless, this more recent version of Kate Kane is an ex-military woman turned vigilante, playing by her own rules. And that's pretty damn cool. And at number 6, we've got Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There's so much I could say about Buffy Summers. A girl who kicks butt, wields a stake, stops the world from ending multiple times, and still manages to maintain a relatively normal life throughout high school? Pretty damn impressive. But she has some high standards, you guys. She has a tendency to date 100-year-old vampires. But sexy ones at least. And she's also one hell of a role model. Especially Joss Whedon's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which had its 20th anniversary recently. It's still a show that resonates with a lot of fans, old and new today. At number 5, we've got Batgirl. Barbara Gordon has been through some guys. She's got the pressure of being Commissioner Gordon's daughter, her brother is a psychopath, the Joker shot her and paralyzed her in The Killing Joke, and then she was Oracle but rocked being a superhero in a wheelchair. Then she recovered and is now dealing with a whole lot of trauma. It's a lot. The new version of Batgirl is a total sexy hipster living in Gotham's version of Brooklyn, and she's living with the age-old dilemma of trying to have a normal life while being a superhero. Her costume is also one of the most practical female costumes these days. She wears Doc Martens, a leather jacket, and a snap-off cape. A bit of a step up from the versions of the character's costume previously. But one thing is for sure, Batgirl has always been an incredibly fun character and is definitely a fan favorite. And at number 4, we've got Red Sonja. Well, hello there, tiny little bikini armor. Sonja is a Viking warrior. Think Xena, but less clothes. First appearing in 1934, Red Sonja appeared in Conan the Barbarian series before getting her own solo one. Now penned by Gail Simone, who is arguably one of the most talented and progressive writers in comics today, she's been described as mayhem, blood, sex, and red hair. What's not to love? Number 3, Catwoman. You can't help but associate the name Catwoman with sex appeal. Unfortunately for Catwoman, her storylines tend to get overly sexualized because of this, sometimes making her character lack some three-dimensional depth. But that's it though. Also, for the record, even though Halle Berry is a total babe, let's just collectively decide to pretend that Catwoman movie did not happen. Number 2, Storm. Speaking of Halle Berry, next on the list is another superhero that she portrays in the X-Men movies, Storm. Storm gets the number 2 spot for many reasons. First, she's an incredibly powerful mutant. Second, she gave up a life of being praised as a god to go help Professor X fight crime. So she's pretty damn selfless. And third, literally every costume Storm has ever had is totally hot, and her hair is always on point. Even though I'm not a huge fan of her gold bikini costume, Storm has always been fashion conscious, and it goes a long way. Plus, I'm sure dating someone who can control the weather would definitely definitely have its perks. And finally, at number 1, we're wrapping our list up with Wonder Woman. How could we not? Although sometimes she wasn't given the greatest story arcs in the comics, there's literally an arc where she's unemployed and works at a fictional version of Taco Bell. Wonder Woman has always stood as a symbol of heroism and American pride. And let's not forget that her creator, American psychologist William Moulton Marston, was pretty hardcore into bondage, and much of her costume and accessories were inspired by his interests. And at number 10 is Witchblade. Starting off this list is an entity that is the offspring of the primal forces of the universe, Witchblade. So yeah, it's a gauntlet and a male in nature, but every host that Witchblade takes, for the most part, is female. And well, let's just say it kinda has a preference for picking out some of the more stellar looking babes. There's the first wielder, Una, a cave woman. Then we had Cleopatra, Red Sonja, Joan of Arc, Queen Kajani, Roxanne LaRocque, and even Lara Croft, real briefly, to name a few. And of course, it's present-day wielder Sarah Pazzini, a New York police detective. Oh, and Danielle Baptiste, a ballet dancer. The two share the duty of wielding it, and it does not like to be separated, which sometimes makes for interesting conflict between the two. Up next at number 9 is Jean Grey. Jean Grey feels like an obvious choice for this list, even though, we left her out on the last part. But hey, she's here now. First appearing in 1963's X-Men 1 as Marvel Girl, Jean was X-Men's first and only female member at the time, and at that point she was only telekinetic, later on to be given telepathy, which was retconned as being one of her suppressed abilities. In the earlier days, she was one of the weaker members of the team until Chris Claremont began to mold her in the late 70s, making her into one of the most powerful characters with her transformation into Phoenix, it being his attempt at creating the first female cosmic hero. And Dark Phoenix, well, super deadly and super hot. What's not to love? Up next at 8 is Zatanna. Zatanna single-handedly proves that magic can be sexy. From that tuxedo outfit to the fact that she is an incredibly powerful sorceress, it's hard to not be enchanted by her. She also knows how to put on one hell of a show, being a skilled illusionist, showgirl, and stage magician, all of which she doesn't rely on her natural-born powers to do. She's also quite talented at divination and hand-to-hand combat. And at number 7 is Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch has the ability to alter reality. Created in 1964 by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, many saw her as the token female character of the Avengers, but similar to Jean Grey, she also became a much more powerful character as time went on, after an unfortunate and embarrassing stint with the Lady Liberators, that is. Over time, her style shifted too, going with a more goth-esque look, something which translated well over to the Avengers Age of Ultron film with Elizabeth Olsen portraying her. And at number 6 is Huntress. Huntress has been portrayed by 3 different women, but one thing has always stayed consistent between all of her incarnations. She's always been incredibly hot. The character's first appearance as Paula Brooks featured her as a supervillain in the Golden Age, and then in the Bronze Age, we were introduced to Helena Wayne, who was the daughter of Batman and Catwoman on Earth 2. And let's be honest, girl definitely inherited some good genes. After the New 52, a new Huntress was given to us in the form of Helena Bertinelli. She's violent and unpredictable according to Batman, but who doesn't like a bit of a wild card? And at 5 we have Gamora. Sexy alien? Why yes. Beyond general sex appeal, Gamora is a total badass. She's the last of her species, the adopted daughter of Thanos, and went through some pretty hardcore shit in the process with that, and is an elite combatant, holding her own against some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. And she's been romantically entangled with a few of those powerful beings, including Nova and Adam Warlock. Plus with Zoe Saldana portraying her in the Guardians films, I don't think we'll be losing sight of Gamora anytime soon. Up next at 4 is Rogue. A self-described Southern belle, there's something quite enchanting about this runaway who absorbs others' powers when she touches them. And she has an almost tragic response to her abilities, referring to them as more of a curse than a gift. When it comes to the attraction fans have to her, well, she has multiple accolades to show for. She was number 4 on IGN's Top 10 X-Babes back in 2006, and 10th in Comic Buyer's Guide's 100 Sexiest Women in Comics list. Not too shabby, Rogue. And at number 3 is Black Widow. Black Widow has always been seen as a sex symbol in the Marvel Universe. While some have critiqued the MCU for not giving the character enough development compared to the other Avengers, in the comics, Natasha's arc from immoral assassin to one of the good guys is actually quite nuanced, and in terms of abilities, she's got a lot going on. She's an expert in karate, judo, jujitsu, boxing, various styles of kung fu, and is a master weapons specialist with extensive espionage training. And Scarlett Johansson? I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Moving on. And at 2 is Psylocke. Psylocke, aka Elizabeth Betsy Braddock, started off as a supporting character in her twin brothers series, Captain Britain, but she eventually made her own way, working with the X-Men and donning the alias Psylocke in 1986. So what can she do? This natural-born leader is telekinetic, telepathic, is capable of precognition, is an expert martial artist, and can construct weapons out of her psychic energy. She was actually declared by Marvel as their second favorite superhero 2011 due to her tremendous and thankless heroism. And what do other people think? Well, she's often referred to as a hot ninja girl or an Asian gal with an incredible body and a British accent. I mean, They're not wrong. And finally, in at number 1 is Emma Frost. Also known as the White Queen, Emma Frost is a mutant who has transformed from supervillain to superhero since her first appearance in 1980. From her dry wit to her exceptional telepathic abilities, it's not just her classy aesthetic that has people's tongues a-waggin'. She's capable of mind control, memory alteration, and can shapeshift into Solid Diamond with superhuman strength, durability, and psychic immunity. Frost has always been one of the more iconically scantily clad characters in the Marvel Universe, with the typical explanation for this being that Frost is confident in her sexuality and prefers to wear more revealing clothes, although she's supposed to be a bit of a fashionista. This argument actually spawned something called the Emma Frost Redesign Project on Tumblr, where fans went wild with giving this total babe of a character a diverse and intriguing new wardrobe. You guys should check it out. In at number 10 is Dazzler. While Dazzler's ability to superhero, yes I made that a verb, don't hate, has always been a bit of a laughingstock. If we throw the bad publicity stunts and rollerblades aside and look at the human she is, well, we'd all really appreciate one of her finer qualities, the fact that she is super hot and knows how to bust a move. If Dazzler was just a regular old human with no powers and didn't live amongst superheroes, I'm fairly certain her charm and dance abilities would put her on many more people's radars. Just saying. I feel like a bro. Up next, number 9 is Wolfsbane. A little edginess never hurt anyone. With the ability to transform into a wolf or a werewolf, Wolfsbane is definitely a character that may not immediately come to mind when thinking of the hottest female superheroes. But this Scottish mutant shouldn't be disregarded. She's like really cool. She was part of the original New Mutants, where Cypher, her boyfriend during that time, actually took a bullet to save her. While she does have lycanthropy, it isn't rooted in a magical source. Rather, it comes from a mutant X gene. Oh, and she also had a biker phase. Up next, number 8 is Rogue. How the hell have we not talked about Rogue on this series yet? Damn it guys, I'm sorry. Are we dropping the ball? We're dropping the ball. I guess better late than never, right? Anyway, self-deprecating aside, let's take a look at Rogue. She's awesome. She has a smoking hot relationship with one of Marvel's other most fantasized over male heroes, Gambit. They're like walking sex. Aside from aesthetics, she's definitely not someone you want to mess with, especially considering her absorption powers via her touch. Maybe not the kind of hero you want to hook up with on a whim.
Number 7, Dr. Sivana. Sivana is a scientific genius, mastering almost all of the scientific disciplines that exist on Earth, making him one of the leading minds on Earth. He is one of the cookie cutters that people think of when talking about mad scientists. He is also the arch enemy of Shazam and the Captain Marvel family, and because of this, and his genius, he has elevated himself beyond just being a scientific genius, studying the occult, and being able to teach himself how to harness magic, specifically after he joined forces with Mr. Mind and when he reawakened Black Adam, which is when his right eye became capable of seeing magical energies. Number 6, Professor Ivo. Professor Ivo is a genius, specifically specializing in cybernetics. He has built Amazo, Amazoid, Composite Superman, and Kid Amazo, and he was also the partner of T.O. Morrow in building Red Volcano. He also built the body of Tomorrow Woman, but he was also able to figure out how to give himself immortality even if the formula that granted him this ability was flawed and left him pretty rough looking.
Halfway through in number 5, Condiment King, the best character in all of Batman the Animated Series. The Condiment King, created by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini for Batman the Animated Series, is a villain who uses various condiments as his weapons, sometimes capable of causing anaphylactic shock. Yeah, that's right. He's generally used as comic relief within the series. He would make many condiment-based puns. For example, the big bad bat guy, I knew you'd catch up to me sooner or later, how I relished this meeting. You, the dynamic Dark Knight, versus me, the conceptual Condiment King. Come on, Batman, let me see if you can cut the mustard. And we all know that I love bad jokes. The Condiment King is seemingly killed after being betrayed and bludgeoned by the Human Flame with his own ketchup and mustard guns at that in the miniseries finale Crisis Aftermath Run, which already shows how he can actually be deadly. But that's not taking into account any potential allergic reactions that he can trigger, like I said, anaphylactic shock, or blindness, okay? I mean, ketchup and mustard are very acidic and can cause some serious damage if left unchecked. Plus, like, what would you do if you had fries and he gives you mustard, okay? The only appropriate punishment for that is death. And at 4, Mr. Freeze. I put this on the list because I really wanted to make Freeze jokes, but yeah, it seemed a little cold. Mr. Freeze made his debut as Mr. Zero in Batman number 121 from 1959, and he was a gimmick character, but was later renamed and popularized as Mr. Freeze during the 1960s television series. However, it was Batman the Animated Series that truly revitalized the character and gave him a compelling origin. In the episode Heart of Ice, writer Paul Dini introduced Mr. Freeze's terminally ill wife Nora, cryogenically frozen to preserve her life. The tragic backstory explained his fixation on ice and turned his crime into crime to fund research for her cure. The complex and sympathetic portrayal resonated with fans, becoming the standard for the character in various media, including the comics. The episode's success was groundbreaking for a Saturday morning cartoon, shaping the tone of the entire series. The origin story became canon in the comics and remained the official backstory for Mr. Freeze in most Batman adaptations, and in the 1997 film Batman and Robin, Arnold Schwarzenegger portrayed him, incorporating elements of his origin with Dr. Victor Freeze, a brilliant cryonologist struggling to save his beloved wife. But yeah, we gotta love the puns. What killed the dinosaurs? A meteor! Instead of the Ice Age. If you get it, you get it. No one here's laughing, so I know that was a great joke. In at 3, Batman. While yes, Batman is a hero, and has been a hero in most iterations I should say, there are versions where the Bats is a bad guy and those are absolutely terrifying, okay? Satan Batman from Batman in Bethlehem, Vampire Batman from Red Rain, Batman the Merciless from Earth -12, Red Death, and the most iconic, the Batman Who Laughs. When he was a boy, Bruce Wayne watched his parents get killed in an alleyway, and then everything went sideways for this version of Batman when the Joker started a killing spree across Gotham. The clown had discovered that he was dying from the same chemicals that had turned him into what he was and wanted to take everyone with him. He killed all of Batman's enemies, including Penguin, Catwoman, Killer Croc, and the Ventriloquist. He also killed Commissioner Gordon, who accidentally sprung an acid trap in his notebook that melted his face off. And then after bombing a hospital and recreating the scene of Bruce's parents' death in front of him multiple times, Batman lost control and snapped his neck. Unbeknownst to Batman though, the Joker exhaled a toxin that was contained within his heart, which infected anyone close to him if he had died, which in this case was Batman, causing him to snap and basically become the new Joker. We all know the story of the Batman Who Laughs, but yeah, that's enough to put him on this damn list. Okay, it's Batman but bad. That's terrifying. But ultimately, in number 2, Joker. The Joker has undergone many revisions since his 1940 debut. The most common interpretation of the character is that of a man who, while disguised as the criminal Red Hood, is pursued by Batman and falls into a vat of chemicals that bleaches his skin, colors his hair green, and then his lips red and drives him insane. I don't know how one vat of chemicals can bleach your skin, turn your hair green, and then your lips red, especially because your lips are your skin, but oh well. I guess that's just because he's crazy? The reasons why the Joker was disguised as the Red Hood and his identity before his transformation have changed over time. However, the lack of solid, consistent origins is the only part of what makes the character so mysterious. During the Darkseid War storyline, Batman uses Metron's Mobius chair to find out the Joker's real name, and the chair answers with quite the revelation. In the DC Universe Rebirth one-shot, Batman informs Hal Jordan that the chair told him that they were 3 individual Jokers and not just one. The revelation is the basis for Batman the miniseries 3 Jokers, where it's revealed that there were 3 Jokers that were working in tandem, including the Criminal, which was a methodical mastermind based on the Golden Age Joker, the Clown, which was a goofy prankster based on the Silver Age Joker, and the Comedian, a psychopathic killer based on the modern one. So yeah, when there's 3 of you, you're kind of gonna be at the top of the list, okay? And that's also partially why people love him so much. And finally, in at number 1, Deathstroke. I know that you're all gonna be mad at me putting Deathstroke over the Joker, but hear me out, okay? Being introduced in the new Teen Titans number 2 from 1980 as Deathstroke the Terminator, Deathstroke is often seen as the arch-enemy of the Teen Titans. However, the character has also served as a villain for Batman, Green Arrow, and the Justice League, and is the main antagonist of Arrow Season 2. The show seems to have a more powerful version when talking about brute strength, since he has actually the Mirakuru within his system, which is a super soldier serum that was ironically found on the island that Oliver was stranded on and saved Slade's life. But after the Mirakuru is in his bloodstream, he develops serious anger issues, like even worse than me, and it's tied to his strength, and then he comes back into Starling City to get revenge on Oliver by killing everyone he loves and blah blah blah. But especially in the comics, Deathstroke is a terrifying character, like when he became a speedster in the Lazarus Contract from 2017, in which Wally is captured by Slade and finds himself bound to a machine, forced to reveal his secrets as he runs. Unbeknownst to Wally though, Slade manipulated him using a verbal technique to extract confidential information, and then he offers him a solution. Assist him in altering the past to save his son, and in return he will abandon his life as Deathstroke. But he doesn't, and then Deathstroke basically takes the Speed Force, which is
And at number 10, Riddler. Believe it or not, Batman has actually admitted that the Riddler is more intelligent than he is. Obviously, he is incredibly insane, but the Riddler has even realized this himself, which only expanded his intelligence. In terms of street-level villains, few can stand up to the intelligence of Riddler. Just like Batman himself, Riddler always has backup plans for his backup plans. He plays for most outcomes, but he usually sets traps and plans that are so well thought out that he doesn't always need his backup plans. And then, obviously, there's all all the wordplay that he includes in his riddles that has even the most astute of readers rubbing their chins just trying to figure it out, you know? Number 9. Vandal Savage. When you think of intelligence, you don't often think of cavemen, but there is one caveman who can proudly make this list. Vandal Savage was alive 50,000 years ago as chief of a tribe of other cavemen, but when he came into contact with a strange meteorite, it exploded and bathed him in this strange alien radiation that gave him immunity to aging, disease, and fatigue, meaning he's effectively immortal. The meteorite also increased his intelligence to superhuman levels, which combined with 50,000 years of learning, experiencing, and living alongside every single technological innovation in the history of man, Vandal Savage possesses skills in almost all areas, even basically becoming immune to pain. But he specifically focuses on the tactical skills that would help him become a world conqueror. He never became. Number 8. Eobard Thawne. Eobard Thawne was a brilliant scientist born in the 25th century and genetically altered to already be smarter than most with an IQ of 167, which automatically gives him a technological understanding that exceeds almost everyone from the modern era. But he was able to create his own negative speed force that has the ability to shut off other speedsters' connection to the regular speed force. His negative speed force also gave him the ability to digest information at an incredibly fast rate, and that, coupled with his already high intelligence, makes him extremely capable with his mind, even being able to figure out insane ways of manipulating time to his advantage. Now, he isn't the greatest fighter, but with his speed and his mind, he doesn't need to be.
Number 7. Savior. Savior is the future version of Tim Drake from the Titans Tomorrow alternate reality. Here, Tim Drake ended up taking on the mantle of Batman, but would eventually become known as the Vigilante Savior. You might be thinking, but Tim Drake is a good guy. He's not evil. What are you talking about? And normally, you'd be right. But in this reality, Tim doesn't end up quite as heroic as the main counterpart had hoped he'd grow up to be. This version of Tim comes to us from a much darker timeline, one where everything got so bad that he and his fellow Titans, known as actually one of the two different opposing Titans teams in the future, ended up adopting a zero-tolerance policy for criminals. Eventually, this future version of Tim Drake even ends up wielding the gun used to kill Martha and Thomas Wayne in his fight for vengeance. Basically, he becomes OG Batman, but even darker. Number 6. Brother Eye. Brother Eye isn't necessarily a villain who exists exclusively in the future, but in Future's End, it is an entity that takes over the world, so I feel like we can count it for that fact. Also, Brother Eye is pretty future-y in terms of its concept. Brother Eye was initially created to be a hero, protecting the world from any threat. In Future's End, the artificial intelligence was created by Batman and Mr. Terrific, but its prime directive ended up kinda corrupting it. Brother Eye came to realize that humanity's greatest threat was actually humanity itself, and sought for complete control over the people of planet Earth, seeing this as the only way to protect them from themselves. It's that age-old AI warning story. Be careful what you wish for, or one day AI technology may just rise up and realize how awful you really are and either hold you prisoner for the rest of your life or just kill you. You know the one. Number 5. Zoom. Zoom might not be a villain who is from the future, but he is a villain who could potentially access it and who has gone back to the past, therefore being from the future at that point, to mess about with Wally West's life. Hunter Zolomon was once a good friend and colleague of Wally West's. He had a rough life, and after Wally refused to help him by going back in time and reversing a severe injury of Hunter's, he'd lost the ability to walk and was basically now confined to a wheelchair. Hunter decided he needed to step up and help Wally become the hero he was meant to be. Hunter actually has twisted but ultimately altruistic intentions at heart. His goal is to make Wally's life miserable and give him a more tragic backstory so that Wally would end up being a better hero in the future, more inclined to help other people with their problems because he would understand them better. Of course, the reason the Flash did not decide to help Hunter is because he knew how dangerous messing with the time stream was. He was like, we can't just do that. But to Hunter, who had suffered throughout his life, he didn't see that as the real reason behind Wally wouldn't help. He was like, no, that's not what it is, it's just you don't get it. Let me go make your life miserable and then you'll get it. You're welcome. Number 4. Savitar from the Arrowverse. This villain is actually a time remnant of Barry Allen and is a combination of the comic book versions of Savitar and Future Flash. Savitar is what ends up happening to Barry Allen if he decides to go down a much darker path. Being spurned by his friends, Team Flash, he instead sets out to become the very thing that ruined his own life. He becomes obsessed with power and aims to become a god. Savitar looks super futuristic and could be considered to be even more powerful than the main continuity version of Barry Allen from CW's The Flash. Savitar also possesses the artifact known as the Philosopher's Stone, made out of pure Speed Force energy. The Philosopher's Stone grants Savitar additional powers and rule over alterations made to reality. With it, he additionally becomes a powerful telepath. Number 3. Monarch. Monarch was actually revealed to be Hawk of Hawk and Dove, aka Hank Hall. But before we knew that, we simply knew Monarch as a tyrant ruling in a futuristic post-apocalyptic world. It turned out the death of Dove was what had prompted him to turn villain. Though, surprise surprise, Hank would later learn it was him himself from the future as Monarch who was responsible for killing Dove in the past. Legasp. Hawk would eventually go on to take up another villainous mantle, becoming known as Extant. As Extant, or Extant, Hank would team up with former Green Lantern Hal Jordan, now known as Parallax, during the events of Zero Hour. So yeah, pretty mega bad. Hal and Hank together planned to manipulate time in order to alter reality, making it as they wanted it to be. You know, if you're doing that, you're probably in the wrong. Number 2. Reverse Flash. One of the most powerful villains out there when it comes to villains from the future is Reverse Flash, aka Eobard Thawne. This villain has found a special kind of way to torment his arch nemesis Barry Allen, and even hurt him so much that Barry at one point killed him out of fear of what he would do to those that he loved. That's how much Reverse Flash had messed him up. We'd also learn later on that Eobard was responsible for one of the most tragic and pivotal moments in Barry's life, the death of his mom, Nora Allen. Many people for years believed it was Barry's father who had committed the crime, causing even more grief for young Barry and his family throughout his life. Number 1. Time Trapper. He's a time trap. Or she, depending on which story you're reading in regards to this character's true identity. Multiple true identities over here. Time Trapper has been implied to be a few different people when it comes to their true identity. One of the more notable folks who has been the implied true identity of the villain is Superboy Prime. If that was true, or I guess when that was true perhaps I should say, then that would make Time Trapper pretty crazy powerful, both strength-wise and of course power-wise as well. The Time Trapper throughout the years has been shown to have crazy control over time. They can block time travel, manipulate someone else's time stream, aging them prematurely for example, and can even take entire planets out of time, slicing pieces of that time off to capture them for their own use. It's been theorized by Brainiac 5 that what Time Trapper really may be is a sentient alternate timeline, forever in a constant battle or struggle with the main one.
Number 10. Circe. Circe was a woman in ancient Greece whose beauty was apparently unparalleled. She married a wealthy prince, but he was a brutish, cruel drunk who she viewed as an animal, so she killed him before eventually coming into contact with the goddess of witchcraft, Hecate, who granted her 1/5 of her soul, which made her a master of magic capable of imposing her will and power on others. After Circe sold her soul, she became obsessed with regaining it from the dimension of hell where it had been sent. She is willing to do anything and sacrifice anyone to try and regain what she has lost. She is known for turning men into animals that serve as her minions, and has magic powers which allow her to open portals and teleport or give life to inanimate objects. She has geokinesis, the ability to possess people, as well as the ability to freeze time to pull herself and others out of a moment. She is a constant thorn in Wonder Woman's side and a constant source of chaos in the DC universe. Number 9. Black Adam. Teth Adam was a member of the Kandaki tribe in ancient Egypt, whose people were forced into servitude by a cruel pharaoh of the time. Most of his family was killed, but Teth Adam was able to escape with his nephew Amun when the wizard Shazam brought them to the Rock of Eternity to make Amun his chosen champion. Amun learned that he could share his powers with Adam, and the two returned to free their people. Amun wanted to find a peaceful solution, but Adam felt that peace was not an option and wanted revenge, so he killed his nephew in order to gain his power for his own. In the present day of the DC universe, he is the ruler of Kandak, and sometimes a member of super teams like the Justice Society. He flip-flops between being an anti-hero and a straight-up villain, but the fact that he once started World War III and murdered millions of innocent civilians makes me more than comfortable putting him on a villain's list. His enchantment from the wizard Shazam has granted him the strength of Shu, the speed of Horus, the strength of Amun, the wisdom of Zehudi, the power of Aten, and the courage of Mehen. This gives him super strength, speed, flight, and lightning casting abilities, which makes him capable of taking out most of the heroes of the DC universe with ease. The only people who seem to be able to consistently stop him are Shazam, who has pretty much the same powers, and of course, Superman. Number 8. the Reverse Flash. There is some variation on the origins of the Reverse Flash depending on the continuity you are looking at, but usually he is a man from the 25th century called Eobard Thawne, who develops a fascination with the Flash. He works for years on studying the Speed Force until he eventually manages to replicate the accident that gave Barry Allen his superpowers and tries to become a hero himself. Because his time period doesn't have much need for heroes, he causes incidents that he can then solve himself. He eventually became friends with the Flash, but once Flash became aware of his true nature, he turned Thawne away and he became the Reverse Flash. Reverse Flash wants to gain his friend's respect and become an integral part of his history, so he traveled through time to mess with Barry's life, doing rather minor things like tripping him on the stairs when he was a kid and going to such extremes as killing his mother in front of him as a child. Reverse Flash's ability to manipulate the timeline makes him almost unstoppable, as if someone gets in his way, he simply travels through time and erases them from existence, as he did to his own brother, Roburn. Due to him being so weaved throughout history, Barry can't even stop him without risking creating an alternate timeline, as when he prevented Reverse Flash from killing Nora Allen and accidentally created the dystopian Flashpoint timeline. Even when Barry does manage to kill Thawne, because he is so connected to the negative Speed Force, he is always brought back before long. Number 7. Doomsday. In the ancient Kryptonian days, a scientist wanted to create the ultimate life form. He accomplished this by sending a baby onto the planet's surface and waiting for either the elements or the creatures of the planet to, let's say, help the baby buy the farm. He would then take whatever remains were left and clone the baby to create a stronger clone, effectively forcing evolution to create the most brutal and effective creature possible. After decades of this process, Doomsday was born. Doomsday is nearly impossible to defeat, being essentially invulnerable and super strong. If you do manage to hurt him, he has a powerful healing factor that will almost immediately undo the damage. If you manage to kill him, he not only comes back to life, but will be evolved to resist damage from whatever hurt him before. He is an unstoppable force that only gets better at fighting you each time. When he first came to Earth, he was able to tear through the entire Justice League, with them barely slowing him down, and the only person on Earth capable of standing up to him was Superman. Superman was eventually able to kill Doomsday, but it took him having to not hold back at all, and even then, the effort killed him in the process as well. Number 6. Parallax. Parallax is a parasitic demon entity that is the embodiment of fear. He spent years traveling the galaxy, causing civilizations to destroy themselves out of paranoia until the Guardians of the Universe trapped Parallax in the Green Lantern's central power battery on the planet Oa for billions of years. This yellow fear demon living in the battery is the reason that for years Green Lanterns were unable to affect anything that was the color yellow. Parallax influenced the mind of Hal Jordan, making him more and more anxious and self-doubting until he was driven mad by the destruction of his home, Coast City. In an effort to try and restore his home, Hal went on a rampage, killing the entire Green Lantern Corps and destroying the central power battery, allowing Parallax to graft onto Hal's soul, causing him to start going by the name Parallax and acting as a villain until he was eventually killed. The Spectre then freed Hal's spirit from the demon. Despite the fact that he can be trapped, Parallax is the embodiment of an emotional concept, fear, and is therefore unable to be killed. Beyond that, he is also able to manipulate reality, being able to create and destroy new planets at will.
Number 5. Pig. Professor Pig is a villain that came to be during a time when Batman stories were becoming incredibly dark, and Pig himself has to be one of the darkest villains of that era. His methods completely disgust the Dark Knight. He looks like a character straight out of a horror or slasher movie, and his obsession with physical perfection, like in the myth of Pygmalion, became part of the reason he surgically mutilates his victims, turning them into his mind-controlled servants called Dolotrons. If his crimes weren't horrifying enough, then just look at him. Yeah. Get out of my nightmares, thank you. Bye. Number 4. Scarecrow. With Scarecrow, fear is the name of the game. I don't believe Batman is actually scared of Scarecrow himself, but Scarecrow has used his fear toxin to debilitate and send the Dark Knight running on multiple occasions, and that makes him a unique foe that puts Batman in a position he doesn't often find himself in. Batman is a physical powerhouse with a mind that is exceedingly sharp, but his mind is also partially his biggest weakness because he has some serious psychological psychological issues, and Scarecrow's whole shtick is manipulating that kind of thing. When Scarecrow pops up on the scene, the Dark Knight knows that something terrifying is coming his way. Number 3, the Court of Owls. Probably the oldest, most secretive, and most profitable group in Gotham City's underworld. When Bruce Wayne became a threat to them, they put Batman through one hell of a psychological ringer and possibly one of the darkest Batman stories ever. He gets trapped in a huge Court of Owls maze underneath Gotham City, and trying to make his way through it, Batman goes through physical and psychological tests that nearly break the Dark Knight. But the court has so many feathers in all areas of Gotham and Bruce Wayne's own life. They may have even had a hand in the passing of his parents. Possibly. And we haven't even started talking about the Talons, a group of brainwashed and undead robot-like assassins. The combo of psychological warfare and the deadly Talons nearly brought Bruce Wayne to the pearly gates. Number 2, Bane. His name says it all, as Bane has been the bane of Batman on multiple occasions. The Bane we saw in the Dark Knight Rises movie was fantastic, and he absolutely instilled fear in Batman, but the comic version of that same story goes to a whole other level. With his master plan being even more well thought out and damaging to Batman, he unleashed Arkham Asylum on Gotham, putting Batman on the ropes as he has to chase down all the escaped criminals. Bane studied Batman. He utilizes his own weaknesses and completely destroys Batman, breaking his back in one of the most infamous comic book moments ever. More recently though, Bane brought Batman even lower than when he broke his spine because he broke Bruce's heart by snapping the neck of Alfred Pennyworth. Any battle Batman has fought against Bane has been with the help of his allies, and that's because Batman knows that he can't take on Bane alone. Number 1, the Joker. I think if there is one person who scares Batman more than anyone, it's gotta be the Joker. They have had such a long and complex history with each other, and I think because of that, and the Joker's obsession with the Bat, Joker knows all the ways to mess with Batman, and he's constantly coming up with new ones. He will go after anyone to get at Batman, and he will go through anyone just for the fun of it. He's unpredictable. Batman never knows for sure where he will strike and what he will do unless the Joker wants Batman to know. Everything is a game that he knows the rules to. The other thing about Joker is that he would never actually take the Dark Knight's life. In fact, I feel like he would probably destroy anyone who tries to. This just makes him more terrifying as he simply wants to be a constant cause of fear and anxiety for the Dark Knight, and he is. Number 10, Gorgon. If you remember the weirdest DC Multiverse Superheroes video, which you should check out, I talked about a pastiche of the Incredible Hulk in DC Comics called Big Baby from Earth 8. He was part of a team called the Retaliators, who were supposed to be a joke version of the Avengers. This universe also had a team of villains called the Extremists, and on that team was a Dr. Octopus type character named Gorgon. While Gorgon did utilize technological enhancements, I think his octopus likeness comes in the form of his prehensile hair. The hair tentacles he uses and his role as a scientist, mixed with his weight and oddly familiar glasses, all come together to really evoke a Dr. Octopus likeness, which is just weird enough to make me double take. He is also familiar enough that I can't really put him any higher on this list, so there's that. Number 9, Dex Star. Or Dex-Star, or Dexter, or Dex-Star, Dex-Starer. Cats can be ruthless, cold, and scary at times, I'll admit that. But while the Red Lantern of Sector 2814, Dex-Star, is an irrationally rage-filled kitty, it's all because he loved his owner. Dex-Star's origin shows the cat Dexter with his owner when she is attacked by robbers who broke into her home. While Dexter tried his best to scratch the attacker, he ended up ending the life of Dexter's owner. When the police showed up on the scene, Dexter was kicked out into the streets so as to not contaminate the scene. Now, 2 rascals from the streets found Dexter when he was trying to sleep, put him in a sack, and threw him into a river. Now that is one hell of a sequence of events, and all this happening filled the poor little kitty with enough rage that it caught the attention of Atrocitus, who called out to him and made him a Red Lantern. With this newfound power of the Red Lantern ring, the raged kitty exacted his sweet revenge on the hoodlums and flew to say goodbye to his owner one last time, saying, in his little cat language, "I find who hurt you, I kill. I, good kitty." I love this cat, but I also wouldn't dare mess with it. Ever. Number 8, Prometheus. Heroes and villains with no powers always seem to be some of the most powerful. It's strange. Take Prometheus. After seeing his criminal parents pass at the hands of police, he vows a vendetta on any form of justice. A vendetta that would push him to be able to defeat the whole Justice League single-handedly. He shot the Martian Manhunter with a dart that turned his power against him and set him on fire. He infected Steel's armor with a computer virus which commanded the suit to damage the Watchtower. He hypnotized the Huntress into unconsciousness. He attacked Green Lantern with a neural chaff that rendered his ring useless. He trapped the Angel Zariel in limbo. He tricked the Flash into believing that he had planted motion-sensitive devices that would explode if the Flash used his powers. And he defeated Batman in hand-to-hand combat. That's probably the most nuts thing on this list. His origin is very similar to Batman's. After his parents were dispatched from the mortal plane, he would travel the globe training and becoming the ultimate combat machine. But he also attended the top universities, learning as much as he could. He eventually sets up a base in the Ghost Zone. And from here, he built an armor that could download information on any opponent's fighting style, kind of reminiscent of Taskmaster's ability. He is kind of crazy capable, and his vendetta on any kind of justice plus his Batman likeness just makes him kind of a little strange to me, but also terrifying. Number 7, Thomas Wayne Batman. Other versions of Batman always have the potential to be a scary thought for our Batman, or anyone, really. But when that version of Batman is Bruce Wayne's own father, who completely destroys him emotionally, teams up with Bane, and is trying to stop Batman being Batman so he can have a normal life, it's an incredibly interesting idea for a character, honestly. But with all the daddy issues Batman has, for his alternate reality father to be so twisted and brutal has got to be a terrifying thought. But what did Thomas do that was so bad? Well, let me tell you. Alongside Bane, he ruined Batman and Catwoman's wedding, causing her to leave him at the altar, nearly had Batman send Mr. Freeze to the afterlife for a crime he did not commit, kidnapped Damian Wayne, hired the KG Beast to take out Dick Grayson, he had Bane put Alfred Pennyworth in the ground, then Thomas incapacitated Bruce with fear toxin and kidnapped him. He dug up the coffin of Martha Wayne, wishing to use the Lazarus Pit to resurrect Martha so that they could all be a happy family again. He went more than a little overboard, is what I'm saying. Number 6, the Batman Who Laughs. Another version of Batman, only this time it's basically the ultimate evil version of himself. A Jokerized Bruce Wayne. He is just absolutely awful. He has all the smarts and skill of Batman himself, but the completely bonkers unpredictability of Joker. And this combo causes the Batman Who Laughs to become one of the biggest threats to the entire multiverse. Now, being a Jokerized Bruce Wayne, he has a few differences to the man himself. He's thinner and faster, but physically weaker. Unfortunately, physicality in battle with this guy doesn't really matter. He's got backup in the form of his Dark Knights, and he has backup plans on top of backup plans as any Batman worth his salt would have. This guy put his consciousness into a Batman with the power of Dr. Manhattan and destroyed Perpetua, the first creator of the multiverse and the mother of the Monitor, Anti-Monitor, and the World Forger. Number 5, Emperor Joker. Mr. Mxyzptlk has an extreme level of power, like I said. Also, like I said, if this power fell into the wrong hands, it could be potentially reality ending. Now, what hands could be worse than the psychotic hands of Batman's arch nemesis, the Joker? Well, that's exactly who gets the power in the Emperor Joker storyline. Mr. Mix gets bored and wants to give Joker 1% of his power, just to see the tricks Joker is able to pull off. But instead, the Joker tricks Mr. Mxyzptlk into giving him 99.9% of his power instead. Joker uses this power to rewrite all of reality to become his sick, twisted dream world. He eats the whole population of China out of a Chinese food container box. He keeps everyone stuck in a time loop, including Batman, who he introduces to the afterlife over and over every day forever. Oh, and he also turned Flash into a slow-moving Abyss Man. Superman, the Spectre, and Mr. Mxyzptlk, being the only ones who can remember the former world, tried to do something about this all-powerful Joker. But that's just the problem. He is all-powerful. He destroys all of reality, but he can't bring himself to destroy Batman fully. And because of this, he loses control of his power, allowing the Spectre and Mr. Mix to steal it back and fix all of reality. But this story it's pretty nuts. Number 4, Condiment King. When the villainous Condiment King came on the scene, it was literally on the scene, as he appeared in the animated Batman TV show from 1992. One of the best, honestly. Condiment King was Buddy Stantler, a comedian who was brainwashed by the Joker into becoming a villain who wields condiment squirters and viciously horrible puns. I knew you'd catch up to me sooner or later. How I've relished this meeting. Come, Batman, let's see if you can cut the mustard. Diabolical stuff like that. The puns get even worse in the comics, with his real name becoming a pun on its own. Mitchell Mayo. He isn't taken seriously by anyone. His weapons don't actually project his condiments at a speed fast enough to do anyone harm, but they sure are inconvenient, leaving nasty stains in your superhero costume. On the other hand, he does potentially have the ability to be able to cause anaphylactic shock if he is battling someone with an allergy, right? Number 3, Monsieur Mallah and the Brain. Monsieur Mallah is described in his wiki as a militant, super intelligent French gorilla. The Brain, on the other hand, is described as a genius French scientist and master criminal who exists as a disembodied brain. So, those two descriptions are interesting enough on their own, but when I tell you the French militant gorilla and the disembodied brain are an item together, I think that just elevates the whole thing to a different level. Together, they are the primary leaders of the Brotherhood of Evil, who were villains to both the Doom Patrol and the Teen Titans. They both appeared in Doom Patrol 86 in 1964. Now, Brain was once a scientist who experimented on the gorilla who would become Mallah, which would increase Mallah's intelligence. An accident injured Ernst, and Mallah had to remove Ernst's brain and place it in a technological holding thingamajig to keep him alive and be able to communicate. The two are almost always together, with Mallah carrying around the brain. Hey, look, I don't judge. You find love where you find love, but as a concept for supervillains who lead a team of supervillains, you gotta admit it's pretty odd to say the least. Number 2, Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man. Let me repeat that for all those in the back who may not have heard. Animal, Vegetable, Mineral, Man. I don't really have a problem with 2/3 of that. I just get really hung up on the vegetable part. Is that weird? Sven Larsson is the man who claims that title. And while it is a completely ridiculous one, it is actually pretty fitting. Sven fell victim to an experiment of his own making, which allows him to transform into any animal, vegetable, or mineral, either partially or fully, although he very obviously likes to do a bit of all three at the same time, which is an odd choice, but hey, I just work here. Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man first appeared in Doom Patrol 89 in August 1964, and he is an enemy to the team, which makes sense given their weirdness. But Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man here has a vendetta against the Doom Patrol's leader, the Chief, who he believed once stole an invention of his. An invention that, funnily enough, is the only way of stopping Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man. But he didn't even do that, so I don't know. Look, it gets weirder and weirder, but I gotta move on. Before I do though, Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to get out of my system one more time. Number 1, Mr. Mind. I think anyone who hasn't heard of this villain before would be forgiven. When you think of the most fearsome villains, specifically the villains of Captain Marvel, otherwise known as Shazam, you may not first think about the 7-inch long sentient worm from Venus known as Mr. Mind. This diabolically evil mind-controlling worm, after the events of Infinite Crisis, would cocoon himself and then emerge as a massive monstrosity capable of manipulating reality, consuming universes, and traveling through time and space. He was described as eating years and events from this universe's history, altering the Earth with every flap of his wings. It took a combined effort from Booster Gold, Supernova, and Skeets to defeat Mr. Mind by trapping him inside Skeets' shell, which was fortified by the Suspendium. Then, Booster Gold threw Skeets through time with the help of Supernova to the day he was first discovered on Earth by Dr. Sivana, and then he is trapped in a time loop forever. So they didn't even actually end up ending him. They just trapped him. This all-powerful mind-controlling 7-inch long worm.
Number 10, Clock King. Number 2, Clock King II? There have been a few Clock Kings over the years, and even in fact 2 Clock Kings II. There's been 2 of those, if you can believe that. The one we're talking about here, however, is the Clock King who is associated with the Terror Titans. This DC villain wasn't necessarily from the future, but did have precognitive abilities that linked him to the future. He could see close to 5 seconds in the future if you're rounding up. He would use his precognitive abilities to predict his enemies' moves and reactions, making him a fairly formidable villain, at least in comparison to some of the other Clock Kings who are really just guys obsessed with clocks and time. Number 9, New 52 Clock King. Yep, we never get to talk about Clock King, which means you know I'm gonna try and shine a spotlight on him here. Clock King's pretty cool. Despite him being kind of a weird villain originally, Clock King has actually had multiple versions, and that's just in the comics. He's also had live action and even animated versions of himself, despite being kind of an odd duck, at least to begin with. Sometimes referred to as Clock King III in terms of his overall appearances, but actually the first Clock King to have appeared in the New 52 continuity, this version is probably the most powerful version of the character. Well, it's kind of a toss-up between this version and the previous one that I just talked about, so you could decide for yourself who you think is more powerful, but I think this one's just a little bit more powerful. Initially, it appears as though he can actually manipulate time, sending people back through their own time stream, but later we learned that he actually employs hallucinogenic gas simply to make it seem like he's doing that. However, I'm not really super convinced on that. I'm sure hallucinations are involved in some way, but how do you make someone specifically hallucinate moments of their past? I guess perhaps through suggestion? Just seems a little suspicious. This version of Clock King appeared in the first issue of the 2016 Deathstroke series and also reappeared in the Deathstroke Rebirth comic. Basically, if you're a villain and you face off with Deathstroke, I feel like you're pretty cool, and I feel like you deserve a place on a powerful list. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like it where we talk about cool time-traveling future villains, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Magistrate. Initially, the Magistrate was thought of as a figurehead for some dark and sinister organization prior to Future State comics being released, and based on the synopses that we got for that event/comic line. However, once we finally got into the future state of Gotham and got the comics, we learned that Magistrate was actually more a paramilitary force which had taken hold over Gotham. And now in the current run of Batman, it's made to seem like the Magistrate was actually a program launched by Simon Saint to help Gotham fight against crime and masked vigilantes, good or bad alike. Either way, the Magistrate is definitely a frightening antagonist, especially in the sense that it's not one that you can directly hit, as it's not a physical character, but more of an idea or concept that needs to be dismantled.
Coming in at number 7, we have the Reverse Flash. A walking time paradox, the Reverse Flash hails from a 25th century where the Flash is remembered as one of the greatest heroes of all time. Becoming obsessed with Barry Allen, the Reverse Flash was eventually able to gain control of the negative Speed Force and made it his life's goal to replace and destroy Barry after realizing he was destined to be defeated by him. Capable of traveling through time, Reverse Flash would wind up being responsible for nearly every bad thing that ever happened in Barry's life, raising a whole lot of questions about cause and effect and all sorts of timey-wimey weirdness, but mainly going to show that he's a dangerous and unpredictable villain. Coming in at number 6, we have the Court of Owls. Introduced in one of my personal favorite Batman arcs, the Court of Owls is an ancient conspiracy that has controlled Gotham City from the shadows for hundreds of years. Originally believed to just be a myth by Batman, given that he had investigated their existence as a kid after the murder of his parents, the court eventually revealed themselves when Bruce Wayne committed to super modernizing Gotham City. With multiple assassins that are seemingly immortal in their employ, and even some members of the court itself appearing to be human-owl hybrids, there's still a lot we don't know about the Court of Owls, and I for one can't wait to find out what we'll learn next. Coming in at number 5, we have Vandal Savage. Remember how I mentioned Eclipso is one of the oldest beings on Earth in the DC universe? Well, Vandal Savage is also in the running, having lived through much of human history as an immortal warrior and conqueror. Seemingly unable to age and with incredible healing abilities in most depictions of the character, Vandal supposedly gained his incredible powers from the radiation of a comet that may have originally been connected to Superman's homeworld of Krypton. Regardless of how he gained his abilities, however, Savage has been a persistent enemy to the Justice League for literally thousands of years, always scheming for a new way to gain more power. Coming in at number 4, we have the Emperor of Shadow, aka another evil Bruce Wayne from the Dark Multiverse. In a very recent one-off issue entitled Batman/Superman Authority Special, Batman discovers a reality from the Dark Multiverse where Ra's al Ghul's plan to dominate humanity has come to pass, and the League of Shadows has become an Empire of Shadows, controlling the entire world. To make matters worse, the leader of this empire is a Bruce Bruce Wayne who gave in to Ra's al Ghul's teachings and embraced his position as the world's new emperor. While Batman and Superman were eventually able to destroy the link between this world and the regular DC universe in order to prevent an invasion, this twisted version of Bruce Wayne is still out there, likely biding his time until the next opportunity arises for the Dark Multiverse to attack the regular multiverse once more. Coming in at number 3, we have Duella Dent. Now, given her last name, you'd assume that Duella was Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face's daughter. And that was her original backstory, with her being given the name Duella because Two-Face was disappointed that he didn't have twins. However, Duella's origins are actually a lot more mysterious, as in subsequent appearances, she's claimed to be the daughter of the Joker, the Penguin, Catwoman, Scarecrow, Riddler, and even Doomsday. Given the extreme unlikelihood that Duella could somehow be all of these villains' daughters, this crazy killer's origins may still be a mystery, but definitely don't make her any less dangerous. Coming in at number 2, we have to go with Batman's iconic nemesis, the Joker. When you're making a list about mysterious villains, the Clown Prince of Crime just has to be on there, because in a way, even more extreme than Duella, we still don't know what this guy's really all about. There have been attempts over the years to give the Joker some sort of backstory, like the Red Hood incident, or when the DC Universe briefly had 3 entirely separate Jokers, but these stories always seem to land on deciding that the Joker's true origin is ambiguous at best. But in all honesty, giving 100% certain backstory to the Joker would be betraying much of his character, and leaving a bit of ambiguity, well, that's probably for the best. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Perpetua, the dark goddess of the multiverse. The DC multiverse has faced many threats over the course of its existence, with the highest stakes being reserved for events labeled as a crisis. But beyond the scope of even the Crisis on Infinite Earths is Perpetua, the mother of the Anti-Monitor and a being that, until recently, was locked behind the Source Wall at the very edge of the DC universe. The creator of every story we've ever been told throughout all of DC Comics, Perpetua altered and manipulated the multiverse for her own purposes and to thwart the mysterious hands that seem to be even beyond her own power level. We still don't know everything there is to know about Perpetua, even if she was eventually able to have her plans stopped, and the sheer scale of her ambitions makes her the most mysterious DC villain of all.
Number 10, Ares. Ares was the one to actually wound Darkseid in the DCEU in Zack Snyder's cut of the Justice League. Of course, this was back before Darkseid was calling himself Darkseid, back when he was Uaxis, and back when he was less powerful. But he was still a version of Darkseid, albeit a younger one, and Ares still beat him fair and square in a one-on-one combat. In fact, he beat him so badly that he was forced to retreat, and eventually his armies fell and the whole invasion was forced to retreat as well as a result of his defeat. Now, it is important to note that in our flashback to this moment, we also see that Darkseid was likely weakened not just by Ares, but by the armies of Earth prior to Ares' attack on him. So yeah, it was kinda one-on-one, but before that it was like a bunch of people on one. However, Ares is also the god of war, so when going toe-to-toe with him, facing armies as well is just kinda the norm. Number 9, Solaris. Solaris might stand a chance against Darkseid considering he's literally just a sentient sun. Typically his beef is with Superman, but if there were a reason for Solaris to take on Darkseid, I'm sure he'd stand a pretty good chance of beating him in a fight. It would be his intense radiation and laser beams versus Darkseid's Omega beams. Considering that Solaris is also an adaptable villain who can scan and process an attack and then use that information to create a powerful defense against it, this also means there are very few attacks that happen to be powerful enough to destroy him, unless you can like destroy him outright with that first attack. This is also why Solaris makes such a great recurring villain. Maybe Darkseid would beat him even the first time around, but Solaris would likely still survive because he's just so resilient and indestructible, and he'd likely return years later for a rematch. And before we move on to this next spot, if you are enjoying this list and you want more lists like it, be sure to show us some love by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Necron. Necron is the embodiment of death, an extra-dimensional being who often seeks to conquer the universe. He has attempted to do so a few times and failed, but during Blackest Night we saw him come fairly close to accomplishing his goal. If not for the presence of the White Lantern, he would have likely succeeded. During that event we also saw Necron's power level boosted, turning him into a massive threat to not just Earth but all of the universe. The other thing is that Necron is a constant and as such can't really be permanently killed at any point. As long as death exists, he technically must exist as well. Even without the boost to his power levels that we saw in Blackest Night, Necron has still managed to take hits from the Anti-Monitor without so much as flinching. That's just how untouchable he is.
Number 7. Earth-17 Superman. On Earth-17, superheroes are a product of government experiments. The Superman of this universe, Overman, was the first, with the other superheroes being spawns of his DNA. Now that may be weird, but that ain't the weird part. He also doesn't really seem like a villain yet, does he? Well, after contracting a disease, contracting a disease from another person, yes, like that kind of disease, he goes insane and destroys the Justice League and reduces his world to rubble. He then gets his filthy paws on a doomsday boom boom that he intends to use on Earth-17 and wipe it out. The Crisis on Infinite Earths destroyed this reality, just like DC tried to destroy such a naughty Superman story, even having different iterations of Overmans who were different, like an Overman who became allied with the Axis powers in World War II. But the internet never forgets DC Comics, and people like me exist to remind everyone of the things you published into this world. I am sorry, sort of. Thanks for the content. Number 6. Mr. Mxyzptlk. Look, I talked about Bat-Mite when discussing heroes, and he wasn't even really a hero, so how can I not mention the first 5th dimensional imp in this video? Plus he's got a fun name. Mr. Mxyzptlk is a reality warping imp obsessed with Superman, who, just like his rival Bat-Mite did with Batman, simply seeks to annoy the hell out of Superman and just prove he is smarter than him. Which is good, because he has a level of power that in other hands could cause the entire end of the multiverse. More on that later though. He can do almost anything imaginable if he wishes it. And his only weakness really is being convinced or tricked into saying his name backwards to send him back to the 5th dimension, which if you're trying to say it correctly is honestly a superpower in and of itself. Clitopizixum. I got it. Number 5. Batman Who Laughs. Look, I'm sorry that this guy makes almost every single DC villain related list, but it's not my fault. DC took a version of Batman, a level 9 intelligence with an IQ of 192 and an unbelievable amount of skill, and turned him into a villain, and that almost automatically puts the Batman Who Laughs in the top tier of threats. But then they also Jokerized him, and it made the character capable of almost destroying the entire multiverse with the powers of Dr. Manhattan. Just like Lex Luthor, Bruce Wayne is just a normal guy, so to elevate himself to the level of a multiversal god who defeats almost any threat posed against him, the intelligence, cunning, and skill he would have to possess this is just beyond anything else we have ever seen. Just like Batman, the Batman Who Laughs is a planner who lets almost nothing get in his way. I wouldn't be surprised if he finds a way to return to the DC universe very soon. Number 4. Darkseid. The most intelligent of the new gods with the exception of Metron, Uxas is the genius ruler of Apocalypse who has developed advanced technologies, conquered countless worlds, gained the anti-life equation, and developed the Soulfire formula for defeating the Source. He is one of the ultimate enemies of the universe, and while that is largely due to the amount of sheer power he has, it's backed up by an incredible level of otherworldly intelligence and an insane amount of experience. He's a master tactician that is able to pretty much outthink almost all of the universe's superheroes, and his presence is always a massive cause for concern that always requires a group effort to overcome. Number 3. Ozymandias. The Watchmen comics, which are integrated with DC but always feel slightly separate, have this knack for being rather realistic in terms of comic books, which is why their version of the smartest man on Earth is actually quite terrifying. Ozymandias is wildly intelligent, but because of Watchmen's realism, he doesn't often make the same stupid, ego-fueled mistakes that other villains, like Lex Luthor, do. Also, more often than not, the heroes kind of find themselves a little conflicted when facing him. That's because he is genuinely trying to help everyone except for the millions or billions of people who would perish for his goals to become reality. Ozymandias is also possibly responsible for pulling strings throughout the multiverse in order to enact his own wills. I feel like since he's more involved with the Watchmen, he kinda gets overlooked, but he is almost always given the title of smartest man on Earth, and it's not for no reason. Number 2, Lex Luthor. Luthor achieved his place as Earth's greatest criminal in the mainstream DC universe thanks to his super intellect, eidetic memory, and gift for strategy. He's also one of the only villains who has repeatedly rallied together the other supervillains, which someone on the internet described as trying to herd a group of cats, and Lex was able to do it. There isn't a facet of science Luthor hasn't mastered to extend his goals or enhance his business empire, including space, time, and extra-dimensional travel, biochemistry, robotics, and synthetics. Luthor isn't just considered the most intelligent human, but one of the most brilliant beings in the multiverse. I find Lex and Oz to be fairly equal, but obviously Lex has many more examples that show off his vast intelligence, and that just puts him a cut above at number 2. But at number 1, it's Brainiac. There is no being in the universe that can stand up to the intellectual power of Brainiac, and with that name, it would just be silly if anyone could. Using his biological supercomputer of a brain, Brainiac rules over planets that he has conquered and manipulates events from the shadows. He even has other separate versions of himself that could each take up a point on this list. His brain is so powerful that he often doesn't have to engage in actual combat at all. His obsession with learning and studying everything has led him across the cosmos, destroying anything that gets in his way, leading him to possess the combined knowledge of many thousands of worlds that he has assimilated and contained. He is, on paper, the smartest DC villain out there. Unfortunately for him, in practice, he's outsmarted by some relatively simple things, like, for example, the fact that germs exist. But despite that, there's absolutely no doubt that this 12th level intellectual being lives up to the name of Brainiac as one of the smartest villains in DC Comics.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Harley Sin. Constance Brand, aka Harley Sin, is the daughter of a billionaire, so you already know she's going to be trouble. Harley Sin first came around in 2016, making her first appearance back in Gang of Harleys issue 1. First of all, the look of Harley Sin, I'm here for it. She's got that Rocky Horror Picture Show vibe, she's a badass. The second issue, titled Hit 'em Where It Hurts, we see the tattooed badass punk put in some work. She meets Harley Quinn, and during a fun little introduction panel, we see Sin say the words, "I'm the person that's going to be killing each and every one of your useless gang." So right off the hop, she's kind of a big deal. I don't know, she's in a bad mood. So this rich billionaire father I mentioned earlier, yeah, Harley Sin's father in fact is believed to be Donald Trump, or at least he was drawn and characterized to resemble him. That plus the tattoos, drug addictions, and lust for violence, you got yourselves quite the villain. And before we move on to number 9, make sure if you guys haven't done so already to go ahead and click that like button. It helps us out a bunch here at the studio, and it's this one, not this one. Unless you're a Spider-Man, then maybe it's that one. Go ahead and click that one.
Number 9, Grail. Grail is the villainous daughter of Darkseid and basically acts as an opposing force to Wonder Woman. The two women were born at exactly the same time, and it was prophesied that Grail, the daughter of Darkseid, and Myrna would bring about much destruction. As such, she was almost killed as soon as she was born, but her mother protected her. She proved almost right away in the comics that she was a new villain worthy of our time when she made easy work of the Justice League. She and Diana ended up facing off shortly thereafter, but their fight was interrupted. However, they would continue to clash during the Darkseid War, and likely will keep doing so, as Grail was basically designed to be the perfect foil for Wonder Woman. Grail was first introduced in Justice League Volume 2, Issue 40.
And number 8, Godspeed. August Hart, aka Godspeed, made his first debut not too long ago in The Flash Rebirth Volume 2, Issue 1. With a name like Godspeed, one can only assume the powers in which they'll contain. Super speed, which is also my favorite superpower on the low. Created by Joshua Williamson and Carmine Di Giandomenico, sorry if I butchered that name, I tried 7 times. Godspeed stands out from the rest of the speedsters because of one badass reason. He can separate speedsters from the Speed Force. Now if you watch the CW's Arrowverse, you know what I'm talking about already. August Hart was also a detective, a former partner of Barry Allen, to be frank. And then along comes a force storm in Central City, and all of a sudden you have these godlike powers. Pretty ideal powers for a hero, and also a villain. That's right, as you would have guessed by clicking this video, he doubles as a villain on the low. So he became the Flash's partner while secretly becoming Godspeed the villain. Not cool, dude. Why'd the villain move though? Well, when August's brother was murdered by a criminal, he was released due to insubstantial evidence. So August decides to confront the Black Hole organization after they had stolen property from Star Labs. He sees their symbol that resembles one at his brother's crime scene. Interesting. So while confronting him, that's when the Speed Force lightning strikes. I feel like if I was a speedster, I would just be like Quicksilver, right? Hang out in the basement, play some stolen video games. Is it really that hard to just chill out? I know you're angry, but like, it's all good. Speed walk it off.
Number 7, Giganta. You expect Giganta to be strong, of course, considering she is a gigantic woman, but I also feel like she's a villain that is more often than not forgotten by people. So while you might expect the strength to come along with her, you just wouldn't really expect her at all most days. Dora Azul was attempting to cure her rare blood disease that she was born with by experimenting on herself. Her mad scientist ways caused her to end up in a conflict with Wonder Woman and later caused her to also become the villain she is today. In the original continuity of New Earth, Doris abducted the body of a strong woman named Olga, putting her own consciousness into that body and gaining the ability to grow in size when her plot to steal Wonder Woman's body had failed her.
Number 6. Automatopoeia. Now I personally love a good automatopoeia, but hey, I will take a bad one every now and then, and that is exactly what this villain is. He is a serial killer that specifically targets non-powered heroes, and he is so aptly named because he imitates the noises around him, such as his gunfire or the dripping water. He is also seen to be surprisingly durable for a human, able to take 6 arrows without slowing him down, and drop at least 7 stories and just keep on running. Now this highly trained villain is one of the most clever out there, not only attacking Oliver Queen's son Connor, but fooling Batman so much that he reveals his own identity. And also in true villain fashion, he messed with Batman even further by killing his fiancée Silver St. Cloud, slitting her throat while imitating the sound Batman's utility belt makes.
Number 5, Punchline. Punchline is a newer villain on the scene and as such has definitely been underestimated. But honestly, it's this attitude that only serves to fuel Punchline's desire to prove that she is actually worthy of all of that hype. As far as we know, she is like Joker, a non-powered human being. Punchline typically fights with small stiletto blades, and despite only being in a few issues so far, she has managed to slit Harley Quinn's throat and create her own specific brew of Joker venom just for Batman, which has succeeded in making him go pretty crazy recently. Imagining Alfred is still alive and still on his communique systems, despite the fact that, you know, he's very dead.
Number 4, Amazo. A super deadly android designed by the insane in the membrane scientist Professor Ivo that acts as an enemy to the Justice League. Thanks to its synthetic body, Amazo is capable of replicating anything about a person in its general vicinity, including their powers and skills, so you can probably understand why this android is so powerful and so dangerous. Amazo has been shown duplicating the powers and skills of Superman, Green Lantern, Zatanna, Black Canary, Elongated Man, and so many more, meaning his arsenal of powers to choose from is absolutely ridiculous. Not only that, he also has the ability to temporarily negate the powers of the hero that he's mimicking. So, for example, he could strip Superman of his powers for a finite amount of time and just pummel him into the dirt. That is absolutely insane if you ask me, and that is why he is on this list today.
Number 3, Harley Quinn. In Batman the Animated Series, Harley Quinn unintentionally pissed off the Joker because she proved just how valuable of a partner in crime she was, and how capable she is as a villain without even the Joker's help, and has also done so with her pal Poison Ivy. Though of course Harley and Ivy just believed they had kidnapped millionaire Bruce Wayne at the time and made him take them on a shopping spree. But still, that's pretty impressive. While many also think that Harley is always moving closer to becoming more soft and more of a hero than a baddie, let's not forget when she executed one of the most villainous plots, also without the Joker, killing tons of children across Gotham with free explosives that were disguised as video games, simply because she was bored and sort of feeling lost in terms of what to do with herself. So yeah, don't underestimate Harley Quinn.
Number 2, the Reverse Flash. Eobard Thawne, one of the many speedsters that you'll find scattered throughout time and space in the DC universe. Also known as Professor Zoom, this biggest Flash fanatic to ever live is capable of basically all the things that the Flash and his Speed family can do. You know, like time travel, super speed, and electrokinesis. But what really sets him apart is his ability to completely negate another's connection to the Speed Force, effectively stripping his fellow speedsters of their powers and rendering them honestly useless. His most impressive feat though would probably be when he, you know, set the entirety of the New 52 in motion by creating the Flashpoint timeline. Almost every hero and villain dies in some gruesome death thanks to the circumstances of this new universe, and yeah, that's pretty scary if you ask me.
Number 1, Lex Luthor. Now when you boil it down, Lex Luthor is just a dude. He's just a bald dude who has a big beef with Superman. Whether that's because he doesn't like the fact that Superman's an alien, or he blames Superman for his hair loss, depending on the comics you're reading. The fact remains that his brilliant intellect puts him in the running to be one of the strongest, most powerful, and definitely most iconic Superman villains of all time. The fact that 1. Luthor is also a human who keeps one of the most superpowered heroes, Superman, on his toes, and that 2. He managed to convince the country, despite being a supervillain, to vote him in as president are both pretty impressive.
Number 10. Amanda Waller. She doesn't even have superpowers, but she is a power all on her own. Nicknamed the Wall, she is a government official who will do anything in the name of national security. I'm talking breaking the rules, killing people, even killing innocent people. She is the commander of Task Force X, aka Suicide Squad, a supervillain team that performs special operations under her command. She has a brilliant tactical mind and is ruthless and disciplined, bending supervillains to her will to get her work done, but she's not afraid to get her hands dirty. She once even uncovered Batman's secret identity. She might not be the deadliest DC villain by a pretty wide margin, but there are a whole host of DC villains that would say she's plenty deadly. It's this ability to get superpowered villains to do her dirty work that earns her this spot on our list. Number 9. Catwoman. Coming straight from the heart of Gotham City, Selina Kyle has had a varied origin, but she always ends up becoming Catwoman. In more recent years, she shows up more as a helper to Batman than as an enemy, but she is one of Batman's original villains, and for good reason. She is in peak physical condition and a nimble acrobat as well as master thief, sometimes even using literal cats to help her in her schemes. She might not have super strength or energy manipulation, but she is still a deadly foe, a skilled martial artist, stealth expert, and has considerable skill with weapons, including firearms and swords. Number 8. Cheetah. A much more intimidating cat, Cheetah has had a bit of a legacy, and there are a few different versions of the character. The most recent iteration of Cheetah is Barbara Minerva, who just recently appeared in DC's Wonder Woman 1984. A skilled archaeologist and linguist, she has a keen interest in the lost culture of the Amazons, and she actually helped Wonder Woman learn English when she first came to the United States. Dr. Minerva has made a pact with a god, transforming her into the cheetah with superhuman speed and all the deadly attributes of a feline. She battles with the inner turmoil of resisting her animalistic rage and predatory fury, and was once friends with Wonder Woman, at least in her human form. She was once busted out of jail by the crime syndicate and recruited onto their team. After a while, she led her own team known as the Menagerie, who terrorized New York from their hideout in Central Park.
Number 7. Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul was born around 700 years ago, and thanks to the Lazarus Pits, he has been able to keep his body in working order. So he isn't actually immortal, but he has gained a sort of pseudo-immortality from the Lazarus Pits. After he came into contact with the Pits, he eventually became a master martial artist and a master fencer. He gained a massive amount of wealth and started creating organizations to rid the world of crime, first being called the Demon, which the later League of Assassins is a branch of. Ra's is an eco-terrorist, and his purpose with the League of Assassins is to eliminate all evil in the world by destroying all of humanity and just starting all over again. Obviously, that mentality means he routinely has run-ins with the superhero community, especially Batman, whom he helped train. Ra's has had many plans over the years that tried to destroy the world, and he has also beaten the entire JLA when he discovered Batman's notes on them. With his years of experience and his vast amount of accumulated resources, this older fellow is a massive threat to both the heroes and the entire world. Number 6. Doomsday. Doomsday is essentially just pure destruction. He was able to bring down the Justice League and take the life of Earth's premier hero, Superman, in his first ever appearance. Doomsday doesn't speak, he can't be reasoned with, and the only way to stop him is to beat him harder than he will beat you. That's because Doomsday was created on the planet Krypton as the ultimate life form, tested against that planet's harsh environment and eventually against the Kryptonians themselves. Doomsday's whole life cycle involves it losing its life and then coming back stronger than whatever took it out in the first place. Over decades, that involved literal thousands of deaths, and Doomsday essentially became a nearly undefeatable monster with no other thought process beyond destroying everything in front of him and moving on. All he does is punch things to pieces, and the only way to stop him is to try and punch him to pieces however you can and as quickly as you can before he does too much damage. And no matter what you do, he will come back even stronger. He's even fought his way out of hell itself. Number 5. Parallax. This cosmic entity is a cosmic entity, so it kinda defeats what I just said in the intro, but he's the living embodiment of fear and has created several problems for different heroes over the years, and still he's somehow kind of small and relegated to like this corner of DC. Originally imprisoned by the Guardians of the Universe in their central power battery, his presence would eventually lead to the corruption of a couple of the Green Lantern Corps' power rings, creating the Yellow Lanterns. Parallax is immortal and exists as pure energy, unable to be destroyed and more than capable of manipulating matter and energy on a cosmic scale. He's able to generate such intense fear in a person that he can actually control them, having done this to several heroes without much effort over the years, the likes of which include Superman and even Wonder Woman. His biggest feat would have to be the corruption of Hal Jordan though, causing the guy to do some pretty unspeakable things like wiping out the entire Green Lantern Corps. Funnily enough, that wasn't the original reason, but DC just retconned it to that so Hal could seem a little bit more redeemable after he just did that. Well, there you go. Number 4. Reverse Flash. Eobard Thawne is what happens when you take the Flash and make him utterly insane. Possessing a deep obsession with the Flash, Thawne's connection to the negative Speed Force grants him superhuman speed and reflexes that meet those of the Scarlet Speedster himself, and sometimes go a little bit past that. This negative Speed Force grants him a kind of power over time manipulation and enabling him to travel through time at will. This mastery of temporal mechanics allows him to alter history, create alternate timelines, and manipulate events to his advantage. His ability to affect the past and future makes him a uniquely terrifying opponent, as he can unravel the very fabric of reality itself. Then, as a villain of Flash, Eobard's intimate knowledge of the Flash's life and history enables him to anticipate his every single move, making it extremely challenging for the Flash to outsmart him, and Eobard has revealed that he has manipulated Barry's life to be the way that it is, which is kind of just a huge old time loop that probably unravels if you try to think about it too much, but just don't do that, so there you go. This combination of incredible speed, time manipulation, and strategic intellect makes Reverse Flash an arch nemesis who constantly pushes the Flash to his limits, solidifying his reputation as truly powerful, incredibly unpredictable, and very hard to stop. Number 3. Starro. If you have seen the newest Suicide Squad movie, the one with Idris Elba and John Cena, then you know who Starro is. He's that massive, terrifying starfish alien conqueror that was releasing millions of tiny starfish that turn people into unwilling servants. Starro is actually one of the Justice League's earliest villains, and he poses a massive threat as he can use his reproduced drones to take control of an entire population, and he has subdued members of the Justice League multiple times, just like how it was done in that film. Originally, he could even turn actual starfish into deputies of his, making multiple Starros. Other than the mind control, drones, copies, its immense resilience, and energy absorption, Starro is also incredibly capable with regenerating, being able to grow back fully from just a fragment of his own body. There are some versions of Starro who are the size of an ocean, and they are totally capable of terraforming entire planets. Yes, he's basically a starfish, but imagining an absolutely massive ocean-sized starfish attacking our planet with drones that can turn people into unwilling servants with almost no way to stop it? That's pretty terrifying. Number 2. Eclipso. When Eclipso made his comic book debut in 1963, he was nothing more than the evil side of archaeologist Bruce Gordon that came out during the eclipse. Pretty simple. But then we fast forward to DC's 1992 Eclipso: The Darkness Within, and out of kind of nowhere, Eclipso is revealed to be a powerful cosmic entity representing the wrath of God that turned evil and was cast from heaven, replaced by the Spectre. Now, he is an entity who is trapped in a gigantic black diamond that was cut into smaller diamonds, one of which was found by Bruce Wayne years and years ago. In an event called Darkness Within, these fragments of the black diamond were activated on various powerful beings, allowing Eclipso to possess them, and one of these beings happened to be Superman himself, and the world's heroes had to fight tooth and nail to try and stop this powerful possessed Superman. It was the wizard Shazam and Billy Batson, Captain Marvel, who finally stopped him, and with the help of the Spectre, Eclipso was forced back into the reformed diamond, but he's not gone. He's still around. He's just chilling in the diamond somewhere. Number 1. Solaris. Introduced in the storyline DC 1 Million, Solaris stands as a sentient, malevolent, artificial sun, from the 20th century, but he survived till and had a bigger part to play in the distant 853rd century. That's a lot of centuries. What sets Solaris apart from other villains is its status as a living star, a conscious being born from the fusion of advanced technology and the essence of a dying sun. Possessing vast cosmic power, Solaris is a relentless foe who manipulates radiation, gravity, and he's a sun. He's hella powerful, manipulating immense energy to reshape its surroundings and project formidable attacks. Its motivation lies in a deep-seated desire to spread its influence and attain ultimate dominance in the universe, but also in the fact that he was defeated by the second Superman and has vowed vengeance against all Supermen who pop up after that. Solaris possesses a unique threat that transcends traditional physical battles, becoming the concept of a living sun with malevolent intent adds an enthralling layer of cosmic mystery and existential danger, and I don't want to think about that. Number 10. Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy, also known as Pamela Isley, wields a formidable and unique level of power that sets her apart as one of Batman's most powerful villains. Gifted with a deep connection to plant life, Ivy's powers encompass both botanical manipulation and a heightened affinity for nature. She can communicate with plants, control their growth, and command them to bend to her will, utilizing them as powerful weapons or protective barriers, and she can do this on a global scale. Her toxic touch, stemming from her ability to secrete potent pheromones, makes her a dangerous foe in close combat, assuming combatants can even get that close. Her expertise in biochemistry allows her to concoct various deadly toxins and antidotes, making her a master of botanical chemistry, and she can pretty much heal herself at will. What truly makes Poison Ivy fearsome is her ability to bend the very ecosystems to her command, unleashing nature's wrath upon her enemies. Now this isn't as impressive as her other feats of power, but she is also quite good at seducing her enemies, bending them to her will, which she has even done to the Man of Steel. Usually this is done with toxins, but sometimes just through straight up charm. With her compelling blend of power, allure, and eco-conscious motivations, Poison Ivy has been an incredibly popular villain who few can really stand against. Number 9. Larfleeze. Larfleeze, or Agent Orange, is one unique character in the emotional spectrum, and that's because he's the sole wielder of the orange light of avarice. He is the only member of the Orange Lantern Corps. Larfleeze is driven by an insatiable greed that grants him dominion over all that he desires, driving him into conflict with whoever possesses what it is that he does desire, and over the power of the Orange Lanterns, which represent greed. His power is centered on his ability to conjure constructs using the stolen identities and forms of those he has absorbed into his horde, making him basically an army unto himself. This ability extends even to abstract concepts and beings, showcasing the extent of his control. The big thing about Larfleeze is that since he spent so much time with his Orange Lantern and ring, he has basically become the living Orange Lantern himself. This energy grants him huge levels of power. His constructs are virtually indestructible and can overwhelm even the most powerful opponents. However, Larfleeze's power comes at the cost of his individuality, as his insatiable greed makes him less of a person and more of a living embodiment of greed itself. Even without the power of the Orange Lantern, his race is already basically immortal, with Larfleeze himself being billions of years old, and with enough power that I seriously doubt he will be going down anytime soon. Number 8. Time Trapper. The Time Trapper is often associated with the Legion of Superheroes, and he operates as a master manipulator of time. If you know comics and time travel, then you know that this gives the Time Trapper control over the fabric of reality itself. Possessing the power to alter and manipulate the past, present, and future, the Trapper can rewrite history on an unprecedented scale. He was able to age anyone he chose to the point of bones or ashes if he wanted to. He was capable of creating an iron curtain of time, which was a barrier which prevented time travel. The Time Trapper was also able to create a temporal force barrier which he used to seal a time-traveling Superman off from the 20th century. He was able to take a slice of time from the post-crisis DCU 1 million years in the past and craft its Earth and Krypton into reality similar to the recently destroyed Earth 1 universe, forming a pocket universe. He made a pocket universe. That's nuts. These are godly feats of time manipulation and control, often depicted as a a shadowy hooded figure, the character's level of power is so vast that even immensely powerful cosmic entities such as the Timeless Ones tread cautiously in his presence. On top of that though, he possesses power with size alteration, intangibility, flight, telepathy, telekinesis, alongside symbolizing the very essence of temporal manipulation and unpredictability in the DC universe. Number 7. General Zod. Hailing from the planet Krypton, General Zod possesses the same superhuman abilities as Superman due to their shared origin. These abilities include super strength, speed, invulnerability, heat vision, and flight, making him a physical match for the Man of Steel. What sets Zod apart though is that he was originally the leader of the military defense for the Kryptonian Science Council. He betrayed the Science Council after learning that they were lying to him about the inevitable destruction of the planet Krypton, and was banished to the Phantom Zone by Superman's father, Jor-El, who he swore vengeance against for not siding with him. His formidable combat experience and tactical genius acquired during his time as a military leader on Krypton make him a fearsome adversary in battle. Zod's obsession with Kryptonian superiority and his unrelenting desire to establish dominance often drive him to harness his power to their fullest extent, doing things that would make Superman faint. Throughout his appearances in DC Comics, General Zod's determination, belief in his cause, and great power, coupled with the fact that he pretty much always comes back somehow, make him pretty hard to put down for good, unless you're Henry Cavill. Number 6. Vandal Savage. Vandal Savage was alive 50,000 years ago as a chief of a tribe of other cavemen, but when he came into contact with a strange meteorite, it exploded and bathed him in this strange alien radiation that gave him immunity to aging, disease, and fatigue, meaning he is effectively immortal. The meteorite also increased his intelligence to superhuman levels, which combined with 50,000 years of learning, experiencing, and living alongside every single technological innovation in the history of man, Vandal Savage possesses skills in almost all areas of the human experience, even basically becoming immune to pain. Specifically though, he focuses on the tactical skills that would help him become a world conqueror. His schemes range from being a conqueror to a criminal mastermind, leveraging his intellect and immortality to reshape civilizations and wield substantial influence. His power is further magnified by his ability to learn and adapt from each encounter, making him an almost insurmountable adversary for even the most powerful heroes. With his immortality, intelligence, and complex motivations, Vandal Savage is one villain that seems to just keep on popping up.
Number 5. Brother Blood. Brother Blood is a pretty terrifying villain, to be honest. He can control his victim's mind if he ends up acquiring his victim's blood. And that isn't just all. Getting their blood, there is a whole slew of powers he can exert over you. In the current continuity, Brother Blood can use the blood of his enemies to heal, rip open teleportation portals, and even project energy. Oh, and he also gains the powers of those whose blood he has tasted. Ew. And of course, once he has your blood, he can also use it to control you, bending you to his will and making you do his bidding. Not only does that mean you are in danger of losing your own free will if you go up against him, but it also means you have to deal with all his servants who have already done so. He also happens to be a weirdly likable guy, so it's pretty easy for him to attract new willing followers to his cause. Currently in the comics, Brother Blood is even using his charismatic personality to present himself as a now redeemed villain, intent on helping to find a new planet for those who join his cause to live on in response to the global climate crisis that the world is experiencing. But we'll have to wait and see if this redemption is actually the real deal or not. I'm not buying it so far, and I'm really excited for when Brother Blood is like, I am a villain the whole time I've been a villain. Yes. Number 4. Darkseid. Darkseid has to be one of the most fearsome villains out there. He is not only the ruler of Apocalypse with an army at his back, but he also has some of the most ruthless, cruel, and elite soldiers in the cosmos. Darkseid has fought and defeated many heroes in the past, even seemingly at one point permanently defeating Batman, although Batman would return and be revealed to have not been permanently taken out actually. Darkseid is terrifying because he is inevitable, best summed up by 2 words. Darkseid is. Number 3. Perpetua. Perpetua is an old evil, but one that we didn't know of in the comics until 2018, when she was first introduced in Justice League Volume 4, Issue number 8. Perpetua quickly became known as one of the greatest evils the universe or multiverse had ever known. She was the creator basically of all things, and the mother to the Anti-Monitor, World Forger, and Over-Monitor. She pretty much embodies the dark multiverse in a way. Well, her, I guess, and the Batman Who Laughs, who comes from the dark multiverse. She is known for being one of the most powerful beings in the multiverse and is considered an Omega-level cosmic entity, basically an evil goddess who is fueled by crisis energy and aims to use it to destroy and rebuild the entire multiverse. Number 2. 2. Batman Who Laughs. Although he may currently be defeated in the comics, make no mistake that the Batman Who Laughs remains one of the most terrifying characters to come out of DC Comics' Dark Multiverse. Batman Who Laughs hails from the Earth of -22 and is a version of Bruce Wayne who ended up being turned insane by exposure to the Joker Venom. This version of Bruce killed all of his fellow Bat family members except for Damian, who he instead recruited to join him. Batman Who Laughs would serve Barbatos, the Bat God, and go on to assemble an army of Dark Knights for him from across the Dark Multiverse to join him in reshaping and conquering all of reality. From there, he would ally himself with Perpetua and would even go on to betray her, revealing the whole time that he sought to conquer the multiverse himself so he might reshape it in his own image, becoming one of the most feared villains in all of DC's history. Number 1. Upside Down Man. While not officially stated as such, the Upside Down Man is kind of godlike in his appearance in DC Comics. He is the dark reflection of Hecate, who is quite dark herself, so that is honestly saying something. And she is considered to be a goddess and powerful witch, so I think we can consider him to be at a god level, and of course Upside Down Man is also a powerful magic user who seeks to invade and devour the Prime Earth reality after being trapped for millennia in the Dark Multiverse with the other kind, banished there by Hecate, or Hecate, whatever you prefer. Number 10. Jane Doe. Jane Doe is a mass taker of lives who served time at Arkham Asylum. She appears to not have any skin of her own, with muscle tissue fully exposed, making her one of the most frightening villains to look at on our list, that is for sure. Instead of wearing her own skin, she covets the skin and lives of others. While she doesn't appear to have any specific superpowers, it has been implied that she might be capable of shapeshifting. She often gets to know her victims before taking their lives and adopting their identities, sometimes even wearing their preserved skin as a suit. Ew. Instead of simply using makeup to disguise herself. I mean, honestly, I don't think you should be putting makeup on exposed muscle tissue anyways. That seems like a good way to, I don't know, get an infection or something. I don't even know how Jane Doe has lived like this actually, if she really is as she appears to be. Even with her not wearing makeup and just wearing, I guess, skin suits. I don't know, still seems like it shouldn't be possible, especially if she doesn't have powers. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to show us you love us by clicking that like button. Number 9. Zonas. You might know about Darkseid, who belongs to the new gods, but do you know about Zonas, who belongs to the old gods? After all, for there to be new gods, there have to have been old gods, right? Zonas is one of the old gods and is in fact believed to have been the last old god. He was known as the god of evil, or Yuga Khan. At one point, he wielded anti-life, claiming that it was what allowed him to resurrect the old gods, and he is believed to be the original being to first wield Omega Beams. Zonas ended up being trapped in the Source, and even after escaping the prison and attempting to destroy all of creation, was defeated and imprisoned there once again. Number 8. Grail. Grail is the villainous daughter of Darkseid, who also acts as an opposing force to Wonder Woman. She was kind of born to be Diana's rival, really. The two women were born at exactly the same time, and it was prophesied that Grail, the daughter of Darkseid and Myrna, would bring about much destruction. As such, she was almost killed as soon as she was born, but her mother protected her. She proved almost right away in the comics that she was a new villain worthy of our time when she made easy work of the Justice League. She and Diana ended up facing off shortly thereafter, with Grail immediately coming across as a promising and deadly new foe. Number 7. Hush. Hush has managed to pull off some of the most horrific schemes over the years, and gotten under Batman's skin many times. And Catwoman's skin, literally in this case, when he ended up stealing her actual beating heart. Thomas Elliot is not only a powerful villain because of his intense vendetta against the Wayne family and Batman, but because he also is often shown to have the skill and the strength to match even Batman himself, as well as the cunning. In fact, in some cases, he might come across as even more cunning than Batman. He has taken Batman in hand-to-hand combat and fared surprisingly well, and he's managed to set into action motion outlandish plots like when he impersonated Bruce Wayne in an attempt to steal his life. Number 6. Granny Goodness. Her name might not make her sound terrifying, but Granny Goodness is not even close to as sweet as her name sounds. She became a trainer of Darkseid's soldiers after impressing him when she herself was selected to train and become one of his elite hounds. Those out there who are fans of Kingsman may find the story of how she was trained pretty familiar. During her training regimen, she was given a dog to train who stayed with her and progressed alongside her. Think you know where this is going? After bonding with the loyal doggo, who she named Mercy, she was later instructed to dispose of the dog. Goodness refused and instead disposed of her trainer. When Darkseid asked why she had done this, she revealed that Mercy was actually worth more than her trainer had been to Darkseid, as she had trained the dog to not only be loyal to her, but to Darkseid above her. Darkseid tested this theory by, tragically, ordering Mercy to attack and take out Goodness, and was impressed when he found the dog indeed obeyed him. Goodness then was forced to actually dispose of Mercy, but this act would inspire Darkseid to shape and use Granny Goodness as his most reliable trainer and recruiter of soldiers. That's one haunting origin story.
Number 5. Darkseid. In the New 52, Uxas, who would become Darkseid, whispers doubt into the ears of the gods, sending them into war with each other, which is when he takes them all out and steals their power, making himself the first of the new gods. He has immeasurable strength. He's immortal, obviously, nearly invulnerable for surviving an explosion that could destroy existence itself. He wields the cosmic Omega effect, using Omega beams to seriously hurt people like Superman and even the Spectre. He can remove people from existence, and using the Omega Sanction can trap people in an endless loop of increasingly horrible lives. Telepathically strong enough to control the population of a planet, he can use telekinesis, teleport, control the time stream, and manipulate matter. He's super smart, has advanced technology, and rules Apocalypse and his army of parademons, but almost everything he does is through avatars that he creates because he is the embodiment of evil. He can do anything he wants to and can never truly be defeated except for in his true form, which is nearly undefeatable. Number 4, Mr. Mind. I think anyone who hasn't heard of this villain before would be kind of forgiven. When you think of the most fearsome villains, specifically the villains of Captain Marvel, otherwise known as Shazam, you may not first think about the 7-inch long sentient worm from Venus known as Mr. Mind. This diabolically evil, mind-controlling worm, after the events of Infinite Crisis, would cocoon himself and then emerge as a massive monstrosity capable of manipulating reality, consuming universes, and traveling through time and space. He was described as, quote, eating years and events from the universe's history, altering the Earth with every flap of his massive wings. It took a combined effort from Booster Gold, Supernova, and Skeets to defeat Mr. Mind by trapping him inside Skeets' shell, which was fortified by the Suspendium. Then Booster Gold threw Skeets through time with the help of Supernova to the day that Mr. Miracle was first discovered on Earth by Dr. Sivana, and then he is trapped in a time loop forever. So they didn't actually end him, they just trapped him in a time loop. This all-powerful, mind-controlling, 7-inch long worm. Number 3, the Anti-Monitor. The Anti-Monitor's story actually begins billions of years ago with the creation of the multiverse. When a scientist named Krona, a guardian of the universe on the Green Lantern world of Oa, tries to use a device that would allow him to witness creation itself, a massive explosion occurs which actually alters the creation of the universe, giving birth to the multiverse. Among the countless alternate realities created in this incident was the Antimatter universe, the birthplace of the Anti-Monitor. The Anti-Monitor embodies evil and seeks to conquer all of existence, while his brother, the Monitor, embodies goodness and watches over life. But that was changed in the New 52 and then again in DC Rebirth. And I gotta tell you what this character can actually do. The Anti-Monitor is a being of extraordinary power who feeds on the energies of destroyed universes. These energies further increase his power, allowing him to manipulate reality and even travel through time. He can also unleash his energy as bolts or shockwaves to attack his opponents. In addition, the Anti-Monitor possesses incredible strength, stamina, and durability, and can even grow to be hundreds of meters tall. He also has an army of shadow demons from the Antimatter universe at his command. However, the extent of the Anti-Monitor's power is dependent on his energy levels, which can be drained in order to weaken him. Still, Only another cosmic being like the Monitor or the Spectre is capable of opposing the Anti-Monitor at full power, and even they needed help from some of DC's top heroes to put him down for good. Number 2, Mr. Zed. Now I'd be lying if I said the concept for Mr. Zed wasn't at least somewhat cool. His whole shtick is being immortal and traveling through time to trap famous people throughout history in the crystal that sits on top of his walking cane. Superman, being one of the most popular and important heroes, obviously meant there was going to be at least an attempt to get him inside that crystal. Unfortunately for Mr. Z, Superman's Kryptonian heritage just means that he's invulnerable to the crystal. Not only invulnerable to it, but he even overloads the crystal, destroying it and releasing all those trapped inside. Kinda makes you wonder why DC started struggling to make Superman stories actually interesting. As for Mr. Z, he would face Superman once back in 1943 and again when the pair got stranded on an island and Superman got rescued, but Mr. Z was literally left out there to starve forever. Number 1, Mr. Mxyzptlk. Mr. Mxyzptlk is a reality warping imp obsessed with Superman who, just like his rival Batmite did with Batman, simply seeks to annoy the heck out of Superman and just prove he is smarter than him. Which is good, because he has a level of power that in other hands could cause the end of the entire multiverse. He can do almost anything imaginable if he wishes, and his only weakness really is being convinced or tricked into saying his own name backwards to send him back to the 5th dimension, which if you're trying to say it correctly is honestly a superpower in and of itself. Mxyzptlk is able to use magic to survive most attacks, he can regenerate and heal himself instantly, and has high tolerance to pain, making him basically impossible to defeat.